welcome to Free Talk Live. Once again, we are here to take your calls and thoughts about whatever you might want to discuss here at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. In the studio here tonight, you've got Ian.
Nobody.
And Aria.
And again, you can bring up anything you want to talk about. There was an interesting thread that Kim.com posted over the weekend. Do you guys know who Kim.com is?
Yeah.
Kim Jong-un?
No, very different.
Kim Jong-il?
No. So it sort of came from the same area of the world, I guess. Not directly.
Well, a little south of there.
Yeah. You're talking about the Kims from North Korea. This Kim.com is from New Zealand.
Okay.
And he is, do you want to define him?
Let's see. I don't know that I can define the man. I know that he ran, allegedly at least, I don't know what the status of that is, but he allegedly ran a site, a pirate site, a torrent download site, I believe it was.
No, it was Mega Upload, which was just
a torrent
simply...
upload
That was a file sharing site.
It was a file sharing site, so you could upload a torrent to it, I suppose, if you wanted to. But
some people do. I got some questionable software from them on occasion.
Well, you got it from one of their users.
Okay.
So
fair,
they had a website where people could sign up and get, I don't know, 20 gigs or some amount of storage, and you wouldn't have to pay for it. And then you could just put whatever you wanted up there and then give people links to them, and then they could use it to download, right? So some people were using the Mega Upload for, as you say, not so legal purposes. They might have put a DVD rip or something of a movie up there, or music or whatever, right? So whatever it is they wanted to share online. And Mega Upload's position was, well, we don't know what our users are doing. And
that's a good way to live.
The U.S. federal government came down to New Zealand with a helicopter SWAT team, raided his house.
The U.S. government did? They didn't make it like the New Zealand government?
It might have been the New Zealand gang. I don't know.
Either way, the U.S. was responsible.
At the behest of the U.S. government, they raided his home and destroyed his company, charged him and his associates in U.S. court, and he has been fighting extradition for the last decade of his life. And
wow.
As far as
That's
I know,
horrifying.
Yeah, as far as I know, that he has never actually been. He says on his social media that he never, quote, "I never lived there. I never traveled there. I had no company there. But all I worked for now belongs to the United States."
Wow.
Dude, that's so messed up.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like the U.S. government.
Sure does.
I mean, they did the same thing to the Pirate Bay people, or they attempted to anyway, or to the Pirate Bay as the organization. I don't know about the individuals themselves, but the U.S. government had no jurisdiction whatsoever in Sweden or Switzerland, whichever one it was the Pirate Bay was based out of. Yep. But that didn't stop them.
No, they all do favors for one another.
And it's not stopping them when they're going after this poor dude in New Zealand who all he did was run a website.
Well, he's not poor. He was doing fairly well for himself running that particular website, and I think he still managed to sock some of it away somehow, because all the photos I still see of him, he's still living in a fairly nice home with his family.
Ross Ulbricht wasn't poor when the FBI messed with him either, but I would still say that poor guy, because he's
I see what you mean.
Railroaded by the system.
Kim.com is he's an interesting character. He's now into cryptocurrency.
I can't say that I blame him.
He's a big advocate of Bitcoin Cash.
Nice.
I can't say that I blame him.
Yeah. And so he actually, I think at one point, he shared a video that Bo Davis made. So I don't know, listeners probably don't recognize the name. Bo was the editor of Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. He also edited the excellent 101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire. He's a really talented videographer, and he does some...
He did a fantastic video with Doug Steinhope overlaid over a series of images called Freedom Defined or Liberty Defined also, which is a very short video, but excellently done, beautifully done.
Yeah, he's done a lot of internet kind of shorts recently, and I believe Roger Ver from Bitcoin.com has hired him to do work for Bitcoin Cash.
Oh,
and
groovy.
So somebody, maybe it was Roger, I don't know who commissioned the work, maybe he did it on his own, but somebody took a clip of Free Talk Live talking about Bitcoin Cash on whatever night it was. I think the captain was on that show. And they took like a 2-minute clip of Free Talk Live and put images to it, right? Because like if it's just us sitting here in the studio looking at each other, it's not the most interesting video, right?
Right.
But
that's why we're not doing great on video platforms. I mean, to be honest.
But if you take some imagery and some videos that are related to what we're saying, you can spice up the video. So they did some post-production work and made a nice little clip where we were talking about Bitcoin Cash and kind of the almost conspiracy theory behind Bitcoin and why it sucks so bad for use as money and kind of why that happened. And they started sharing that around. And Kim.com shared that from his account.
Nice.
So, yeah, the guy's he's an interesting character. So I follow him on social media, and he says, "This may be the most important thread I ever make. Big picture stuff about the major global collapse that is coming. I'll try to help you understand why the future is not what we're hoping for. It's worse than most can imagine."
I tend to think, I don't know where he's going with this, but that's my general assessment of the economic situation as well. It's going to be bad for a lot of people.
And it's just getting started.
Yeah.
In fact, Ron Paul, when we had him on last week on Tuesday night, said he thought that we were 10% of the way into the correction.
I think that's optimistic. I think it's going to be significantly worse.
Yeah. Well, 90% is pretty worse from where what we've seen so far.
Yeah, I don't even know if we've seen the start of a correction.
Yeah.
But I'll defer to Ron Paul on that because
I mean, the gas station across from my house is selling diesel for like $6.49 a gallon or something like that. That's going to escalate the cost of everything exponentially as diesel continues going up, and it's going to continue going up.
What's diesel cost in California right now?
Can't be good, man.
Regular gas is getting up towards 10 in some parts of California.
I would guess diesel in California is closer to 14 or 15. I don't know. That's just a guess.
10 at
but
this
yeah,
point.
It's not pretty, and it's not going to get any better. And when the price of diesel goes up, so does the price of everything else, except, incidentally, wages.
Yep, because those always trail behind a long ways. So Kim.com.
Well, they trail behind, and also if you're paying more for shipping and raw materials, then there's less left to pay wages.
So here's what he has to say. He says the United States did not have a surplus or balanced budget since 2001. In the last 50 years, the U.S. only had 4 years of quote-unquote profit. In fact, all the profit the U.S. had, some of the government here, obviously, would not be enough to pay for 6 months of the current yearly deficit. So how did the U.S. pay for things? And then he shows a chart which shows the...
Is it the inflation graph?
This one is actually the deficits. So it shows the year after year. You remember the Clinton administration, at the very end, there was a quote-unquote surplus because they were actually collecting more than they were
Wasn't that because
spending.
of the dot-com bubble, though? Or the boom of the internet, at least?
It was supposedly due to the collapse of the Soviet Union and the lack of, they called it the peace dividend at the time. Although, of course, there never was any peace. So it was my understanding is it was actually a projected surplus that never
didn't materialize.
Came to be.
He said U.S. spending and debt have spiraled out of control, and the government can only raise the money it needs by printing it. And as we know, that defines inflation when you increase the money supply. He says it's like taxing you extra because you pay more for the things that you need and all your assets decline in value. And then he provides the inflation chart of what is called the M1 money stock. And as I understand M1, that's the actual physical money supplies. Isn't that right?
I think M1 includes demand deposits, but I'm not sure.
Well,
one of them
way,
doesn't include digital, right?
I don't know.
One of them does.
That would be something we could look up here. But either way, it is the some amount of the money that's going on out there. And, of course, it's a dramatic increase since 2010. And then in 2020, it shoots up even further, like almost straight up like a cliff. There's more coming up here. We'll share more with what Kim.com has to say about the what he considers to be an absolute disaster that is on the way. If you want to weigh in here, the number 603-283-6160, you can join us. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. The number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Somebody in our chat room on Twitch, Jesus the Cynic, says California diesel high today was only $6.87. I'm surprised about that, given that some stations are selling actual unleaded gas for close to $10.
Maybe the
in
price of
California.
diesel is more uniform across the United States then.
Yeah, I don't know.
The price of diesel, especially because most of the problem in California is taxes, then tax rates are arbitrary. So there's no reason to believe that the ratio of unleaded gas price to diesel price will hold true across the country.
If you want to weigh in here on the economic calamity or hurricane, as apparently Jamie Dimon, the banker from J.P. Morgan, if I recall, the head boss man over there.
I was going to guess Goldman Sachs. I don't know.
No,
They're
he was
all
JP
interchangeable
Morgan.
as far as I'm concerned.
We'll get into that because you've got a story about what he has to say about this going on. But first, it's Kim.com.
Interesting that even the bad guys are starting to admit there's a disaster coming.
Yeah, well, I guess they have to prepare their clients at some level, right? Like, the ones that have paid a bunch of money for their services, they probably should let them know. But Kim.com is certainly no fan of the U.S. government, considering they have been persecuting him for, I think, pretty much the last decade at this point of his life. And he's got a few things to say. He points out that the U.S. federal government has had a deficit for ever since 2001, according to their own numbers. They've been doing the M1 money printing like crazy, especially in just the last 2 years. And he says further, the reason why the U.S. got away with it for so long is because the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. Nations.
He's right.
Well, there's that, and there's also the fact that when people try to escape the U.S. dollar, well, the last two examples that I can think of, except Putin, who's more recent, but before Putin, the last two examples were Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi, who one wanted to trade oil for euros, the other wanted to trade oil for gold, and they were both murdered by the U.S. government. So
he points out that nations everywhere hold the U.S. dollar as a secure asset. So when the U.S. government prints trillions, as it's been doing, it's robbing Americans and the entire world. It's the biggest theft in history.
I hate thinking about it in those terms. He's absolutely right. I think about it in terms of how it affects me as, a person who uses primarily USD because that's the currency of the realm, and the United States government has sort of prohibited me from using better forms of money.
We've literally got a gun to our head, and we can't use cryptocurrency under our bail conditions in the Crypto 6 case.
However, it's absolutely true. It's not just us being affected by this. The U.S. government is robbing the entire planet.
Although the rest of the planet does have the option to use cryptocurrency and what have you. So I hope they take advantage of that. So, the fools get stuck with the bag.
And, as much as we've criticized the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, for being a little tyrant himself, he at the very least did legalize Bitcoin as legal tender there. So people do have the opportunity in that country, at least, to easily exit the U.S. dollar and use an alternative. So it'd be nice if we saw more of that happening. It's slow, but it's happening.
I would love to see just an abolition of the concept of legal tender, right?
Sure.
I mean, that would have been, obviously, the guy in El Salvador, Bukele, he's not going to do that because he's a Bitcoin maximalist from what I can gather. But, just saying, hey, look, we don't even have a legal tender. Whatever form of money you want to accept.
Let the market decide.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get away from the Bitcoin maximalist term. I prefer Bitcoin monopolist.
That's a good one. It's more descriptive.
Yes.
Although the thing is, a lot of the Bitcoin monopolist, maximalist types, they believe in using the dollar.
Right, because for them, it's not about freeing the world from the clutches of government or anything like that. For them, it's about having Bitcoin as an asset and making lots and lots of money off of it.
Yeah. Well, also they're putting all their eggs in a basket of currency that is useless as currency because there's
they don't even want to use it as currency. They just want it to sit there.
Yeah.
It's a quote-unquote store of value to them. I'm talking about Bitcoin, BTC.
But the question is, if the technology is a monetary technology and it can't be used as money, then a store of what value?
Yeah, it's
what value are they storing? They're storing
it's speculative that it's going to go up because more people are going to buy it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And buy it for what reason if it's not useful?
With the hope that it goes up.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all it is right now. And it wasn't supposed to be that way. That wasn't Satoshi Nakamoto's intentions with Bitcoin. It's supposed to be a peer-to-peer electronic cash. That's what the white paper says on the front page.
It's supposed to be usable as a currency. Bitcoin's biggest mistake, or Bitcoin can't make mistakes, but the Bitcoin community's biggest mistake is allowing the miners, the ones who want to make large amounts of money off of it, determine what Bitcoin is going to be. This is why Bitcoin Cash is so important and why Bitcoin
the programmers
SV.
could have programmed it differently. I mean, the miners get to decide things, and so do the programmers.
Yeah, but whatever the 51% of the
users.
miners go with is going to be what Bitcoin is, right? And the miners are always going to choose the one that's going to be most profitable for them.
Well, there's no reason to believe in the long run that that Bitcoin BTC is going to be the most profitable. As a matter of fact, I believe the opposite. I believe that Bitcoin Cash or some other digital cash that's actually usable as currency has a lot more growth potential, especially now because Bitcoin has been hyped. I think a lot of what's going on is going on in the media, because you'll notice there's only two coins that the media talks about:
Bitcoin
and Ethereum. And both of them share the property of having out of control fees.
That's
so
right. Yeah.
They also talk about Shiba Inu and Dogecoin as well.
The Dogecoin they're kind of forced into because people like Elon Musk talk about it. I'm sorry, I've never heard of Shiba Inu. I don't even know what that is.
The craze is gone on that one. It was a crazy,
Is that like Luna?
No.
Oh, they talked a lot about Luna too.
Shiba Inu is just another Ethereum token. It's just another meme coin, basically, that went to the moon and then back down.
As they do.
And, you see, generally when the media starts hyping a crypto, to me, it's a sign
too late,
that
number one.
That's not the crypto to use.
Yeah.
Terra was another one that I talked about a lot.
Not until it really died off.
Well, yeah, I know. They talked about it in negative context, but they did talk about it a fair bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it deserved to be talked about. It was an incredible failure. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160, although they now
Was it a failure, or did it accomplish what it was intended to accomplish?
I think it was a failure.
There's more coming up, though. And now there's Terra 2 sequel.
Groovy.
More coming up. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on Library for years. Library is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, Library launched Odyssey, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off. Now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odyssey started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odyssey. You can watch live or anytime on our Odyssey channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odyssey today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
If you look at what's just happened in Parliament, whatever statistics you want to chuck around, I've got many more MPs supporting me now than I did in 2019. I'm happy with that. We're going to bash on. We have a huge agenda, and we're going to get it done.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson welcoming the outcome of a confidence vote in his leadership. He will remain in office after securing the support of 211 of his fellow Conservative Party lawmakers, but 148 of them, more than 40% of the parliamentary party, voted against him. Andrew Marr of Britain's LBC Radio is one of the country's most prominent political commentators.
That's a heck of a lot of MPs. voting against their own prime minister. Looking at the history of these votes going back, I'm afraid the prime minister is still living through a wilderness of pain, and there's more to come ahead.
Kremlin-backed state media in Russia have confirmed the death of one of the country's top generals during intense fighting in the eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. Major General Roman Kutuzov was leading troops from the breakaway Donetsk People's Republic that's recognized as independent by Moscow but not by Kyiv. US President Joe Biden is trying to salvage his Summit of the Americas after Mexico's president pulled out of the high-profile week-long conference on the US West Coast. Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he's skipping the event in retaliation over the US decision not to invite Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua. FSN's US correspondent Nick Harper with more.
The summit in Los Angeles is meant to be a chance for the US to show its diplomatic clout and its leadership role in Latin America. Now, President Biden is facing an embarrassing rebuke from Mexico's leader, the head of America's most important trading partner in the region. Mexico's foreign minister will attend instead, but other countries have also threatened to boycott after the US said it was not extending invitations to authoritarian-led Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela. Biden will attend the summit in person on Wednesday. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A spate of shootings over the weekend in several US cities has strengthened calls for stricter gun control, just as lawmakers insist they're more confident than ever that a deal can be reached. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Benji Hire reports.
Democrats in Congress have seized on a growing sense of national outrage and are pushing for a bipartisan response with Republicans to toughen federal gun laws for the first time in a generation. Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, the lead negotiator, says they're closer than ever before to a compromise, but any agreement looks certain to fall well short of President Biden's proposal to ban assault weapons. And the stakes are high. Murphy admits the consequences of failure for our entire democracy are more significant than ever. Benji Hire, Washington.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and the phones are open if you want to join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. We're talking about the coming economic hurricane, the calamity, if you will, that a lot of people are predicting. Some people say, like Dr. Ron Paul, that we spoke with last week, if you missed that interview, just go to freetalklive.com. It's linked there on the front page of the website.
It's so good of people like Jamie Dimon and, other financiers to finally be getting on board with what we've been talking about for 2 years now, which is that this government printing...
2 years? Hell, I've been talking about it for 20.
I know. Sure. I was going to refer specifically to the government printing that has escalated since, COVID-19.
It's in overdrive right now.
Yeah, it's definitely in overdrive. But
they're stealing as much as they can.
But that's predictable. It's like
that's how it always goes.
It's like the cycle of an addict. I used to do a little, but a little didn't do it, so a little got more and more.
Well, yeah, and that's the story of all of the hyperinflation in the world, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they start slow and then they keep cranking it up because they have to steal more and more before it's curtains.
Yeah. And right now my feeling is it's end game, and they know it's end game. So they're going to be distributing more and more to their friends and their cronies, and their friends and their cronies are going to convert that stuff into hard assets because, generally the stock market, the real estate market, all of the asset markets float on top of inflation. So that's the one thing that I would disagree with Kim.com on, is he said that all of your assets would lose value, and in reality your monetary assets will lose value in the inflated currency. And in this case, which is unique in the history of the world, because there is a fiat reserve currency, I expect all monetary assets to collapse, with the exception of cryptocurrency, and monetary metals.
I think other fiat currencies will be fine. I mean, they'll take a hit, but I don't see like the euro
they're
collapsing.
all inflating.
Sure.
Well, they're all inflating, and also they're all backed by
nothing.
When you say, nothing or a big pile of dollars. Now, there are a couple exceptions to this. There is the Russian...
The ruble?
The ruble,
also backed by nothing,
it's backed by nothing, but it's not backed by a big pile of dollars. And Russia,
but if the dollars are backed by nothing, then everything that is backed by dollars is backed by nothing.
That's what he's saying.
I would say at this point, being backed by dollars is being backed by worse than nothing.
Ron Paul says we're, in his estimation, 10% into this correction. And if you want to weigh in, you're welcome to join us at 603-283-6160. I'm going to continue with what Kim.com has to say here. He's written what he considers to be the most important thread that he has ever made, and so I thought it was really interesting. So we're going to continue. He's looking at the numbers, looking at the tremendous inflation of the money supply of the dollar, and does point out that it is the world's reserve currency, and so therefore they are literally robbing everyone in the world who is holding dollars, and there's a lot of those people.
Who's holding dollars directly or indirectly through their national currency.
He says the problem is this has been going for decades, and there's now no way to fix it. The reality is the U.S. has been bankrupt for some time, and what's coming is a nightmare, mass poverty, and a new system of control. Let me explain why this isn't just doom and gloom talk.
And bankruptcy for a fiat money empire is different than bankruptcy for any other entity, because any other entity goes bankrupt when it runs out of money. It can no longer pay its bills. But a fiat money empire can't run out of money. They will always have more money because they can just print it virtually for free. Although Venezuela is a counterexample where they have to get dollars to pay people to print their currency. But in general, in a modern economy where dollars come into existence mostly through computer transactions that cost nothing, the dollar empire never runs out of money. What happens is that the value of that money drops to zero. Nobody wants it. Not me, the other nobody. And
he has a number here which he must have gotten wrong, or he doesn't explain where it came from. He says total U.S. debt is at $90 trillion. Now, last I heard, it only crossed $30 trillion fairly recently. I know it's going up pretty fast.
Good Lord, though.
But how is he counting debt? Is he counting government debt? Is he counting consumer debt?
Ooh, good point.
Is he counting?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers that
I think he's smart enough not to include
under
consumer
that
debt.
heading.
Well, I don't remember what consumer debt is off.
The debt of the individual household and stuff like that.
I don't remember what the aggregate.
I don't either, but
we've talked about it.
I
recently.
imagine Kim.com is intelligent enough to realize that the consumer debt isn't necessarily going to affect the inflation rates of the U.S. dollar.
Oh, well, it somewhat does. If you read the Austrian economists, they talk about not monetary expansion, but credit expansion. So when a bank lends money that it doesn't have, the money supply gets larger because it's making a deposit into an account that came from nowhere.
I'm aware of that, but that's like pennies on the thousands for what the U.S. government is printing.
Well, apparently consumer debt...
I don't know. What is the total consumer debt in the United States?
Apparently it's about $15 trillion.
15 trillion.
Yeah,
okay,
so half of the U.S. national debt.
Okay, and that seems more reasonable to me. I had a hard time believing that the people had actually borrowed twice as much as the government.
Yeah. So let's just say maybe that number's right, maybe it's not. But either way, he goes on. He points out U.S. unfunded liabilities are at $169 trillion. So what is an unfunded liability? That's where the government has promised to do something in the future, like pay out Social Security or pensions, for instance, for their bureaucrats. Isn't that what that is?
That would be an unfunded liability.
They're going to come due at some point. They're just not due all right now.
And there's no money to actually pay for that. Their intention is to tax us in the future to pay for that. But if we don't have anything, they can't tax us.
He says combined. That is
the only good thing about poverty is they can't tax you.
$778,000 per U.S. citizen, or over $2 million per U.S. taxpayer. Because remember, not everybody pays taxes. Remember, he says the only way the U.S. government can operate now is by printing more money, which means hyperinflation is inevitable. The total value of all of the companies listed on the U.S. stock market is $53 trillion. The real value is much lower because the U.S. has been printing trillions to provide interest-free loans to investment banks to pump up the stock market. It's a scam. Most of the $53 trillion, he says, is air. The value of all U.S. assets combined, every piece of land, real estate, all savings, all companies, everything that all citizens, businesses, entities, and the state own is worth $193 trillion. That number is also full of air, just like the U.S. stock market, he says. And so then he says, let's do the math. And he adds up the total debt with the U.S. unfunded liabilities totaling $259 trillion, subtracts the total amount of U.S. assets at $193 trillion, and that is a negative balance, according to him, of $66 trillion. He says that $66 trillion of debt and liabilities after every asset in the U.S. has been sold off, which, of course, would never happen, right?
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, you can't make people sell their houses to pay off the U.S. national debt. Americans won't stand for that. They will draw a line eventually.
His point, though, is there's not even enough assets in the United States to pay off that staggering amount of trillions. It is not a possibility.
Now, what's the GDP now? It's about 20 trillion, maybe?
Well, but the numbers are irrelevant. The way the fractional reserve system is set up is so that there's never enough assets in the land to actually pay back both the dollar and the interest.
Yeah, because the interest.
It's designed for us to be perpetually in poverty and in debt.
We got more, though. He's got more. We can talk about all that, and your thoughts are welcome here at 603-283-6160. So the numbers don't work, and as Arya pointed out, they were never intended to. They just get worse and worse every single week. It's Free Talk Live.
If you're looking for work, there's a piece of paper more important than your resume. It's the cover letter attached if you're snail mailing, or the email to which you attach your resume. Make it 4 short paragraphs. Paragraph 1, say that you're applying for work. The person you're sending to gets a ton of mail about all sorts of things. If you have a password, that's your first sentence. Tom Nelson tells me you and I should meet. Paragraph 2, what you do and how that relates to the opening. Be as specific as possible. Paragraph 3, why you want this particular job. I'm originally from Boston, so I know the market well. I have family and friends in the area, so this would be a homecoming for me. Paragraph 4, unless the job posting stipulates no calls, and I will call you to follow up. Thank you in advance for your time. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Free Talk Live.
Rights are inherent because we're humans, and they're a good idea that we respect among one another. Look, I mean, I believe in the I believe in your right to defend yourself. So if you want to,
don't you believe in the right as a country to defend our borders?
Collectives don't have rights. Only individuals have rights.
No, we have right as a collective, as a country.
No, I don't think that you can grant something to a collective that you don't have yourself. So you don't have the right to, like, put a gun to my head and take money from me, right?
No, certainly not.
Okay, well then you wouldn't have the ability to grant that to a collective. You wouldn't have, you and 10 other people getting together wouldn't be able to create a collective right to put a gun to my head and take my money, would you?
Then what do we have government for?
I don't know, man. It's something we've been saddled with for a long time, and I think it's about time that we end it.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Nobody, and Aria in the studio here tonight. And I do want to let you know about Bitcoin.com. We told you a little bit about cryptocurrency earlier, but if you want to learn the basics, I would recommend you go to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started at the top of the page there, and then you can learn some the important ground level stuff that you really ought to know about cryptocurrency. What is it that makes it different from the government money that we've been talking about here? They will teach you those things over at Bitcoin.com. Just click Get Started at the top of the page. If you're not brand new to crypto, you can go and get the latest news headlines about the world of cryptocurrency anytime you want. Just go to news.bitcoin.com. They've got them for you over there. That's news.bitcoin.com. As we continue, we've been sharing with you Kim Dotcom and his opinion about the collapse that he says is coming. And a lot of people, Ron Paul, who we spoke with last week, says it's happening.
I mean, anyone who's paying attention to the economy, I would think maybe not a collapse is coming, but economic hardship is certainly, undeniably,
it's here
around the corner.
I mean, it's here.
Also true, yeah.
Gas prices have doubled since Biden took office.
I saw that.
Yeah. And of course, they're up even more because you have to factor in that they went down to less than $2 a gallon during the last year. I think it was at some point during the Trump administration, but started going up before Biden took office. So, I mean, it's gone up quite a bit in just the last 2 or 3 years. And that hurts, as you pointed out, Aria, that it hurts everybody because the prices of everything go up. And, of course, they're printing trillions of dollars in order to fund the government. And that makes prices go up because that's what inflation is an increase in the money supply, and more money floating around chasing the same amount of goods is going to result in the prices of those goods going up as well.
I think the big takeaway from what Kim.com has said here, he mentioned that, that there's not enough assets in the United States to pay off all of its debts.
Nope.
And that's absolutely true, and it's designed that way, but that's because the economy as a whole is set up, it's structured to be a game of musical chairs. And when the music stops, someone is always, by definition,
the loser,
left without a chair, and they're eliminated. And when this happened in 2007, we saw a lot of people getting eliminated by having their houses taken, being unable to pay their health care bills or whatever. So I don't know what the biggest loser is going to be in the next great recession.
The poor and the middle class.
Certainly.
Oh, sorry, nobody.
If things go as planned, I expect the biggest loser to be freedom, because I think this is all part of the Great Reset.
Yes, he mentions that.
We saw the We saw the World Economic Forum, through its proxies in the various government, intentionally shut down every economy in the world. That wasn't an accident, and it wasn't necessitated by the lab-grown virus that was released. What it was, I believe, was a softening up process. And another part of the softening up process, I think, is the destruction of food processing plants all across the nation. That's going to make it harder and harder for us to be self-sufficient.
Or in the case of the baby formula, the government just shut that place down.
The government shut it down
that one.
after creating the monopoly through the WIC program, which buys half of the baby food in America and only buys it through a few companies.
Wow, I didn't realize that. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's something that I've seen covered in only a few places.
I knew Similac was the big one, but I didn't make the connection to that. That's because WIC is also buying Similac.
Welfare. That's government welfare.
And they're providing the vast majority of welfare to babies in the United States because parents are already living paycheck to paycheck, so they need that little, quote, helping hand from the government.
Yeah, and the more dependent they can make us, the more ability they're going to have to force us into this dystopian future where we will own nothing, but we will supposedly be happy. Now, I don't see how being a slave is likely to lead to happiness. We may be able to sing some great spirituals.
Yeah, they're not handing out the Soma just yet.
They'll hook you up with the Soma, but
well,
first you
they
gotta put on
are in the
VR
form
goggles.
of antidepressants, but of course, every once in a while, people on those things go and shoot up a school.
Yeah, you're talking about that metaverse.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially what they're getting at. You're going to own nothing. Oh, you have this digital land. This is, you just come out into the real world to be your tech slave for 6 to 8 hours a day, and it's miserable. You absolutely hate it, but then you get to escape for the next 8 hours into this virtual world.
You can drink your Soylent.
Yeah, and be a pony or whatever it is that people do there. All while being medicated with Soma. Bliss that awaits us in the future.
Continues. This is a lengthy thread that he posted on his Twitter account at Kim.com, spelled DOTCOM. Even if, he says, the U.S., even if they could sell all assets at the current value, which is impossible, it would still be broke. The U.S. is beyond bankrupt. The patient is already dead. The patient is now a zombie. You probably wonder, why are things still going? Why didn't everything collapse yet? Well, it's all perception, denial, and dependency. The perception is the U.S. has the largest economy and the strongest military in the world, but the reality is the U.S. is broke and can't afford its army. The denial is that all nations depend on a strong U.S. dollar or global markets collapse.
I think he's wrong about that, and I think the United States government, they absolutely do have some mechanism in place, some emergency plan to pay their soldiers. It may be gold at Fort Knox, I don't know
it's
what.
It's the printing press.
The printing press,
when the printing press
also,
fails,
I expect them to seize food and use that, because when it comes down to it, what the soldiers are going to want is to be able to feed their families.
Sure, that's why the soldiers always get paid.
Yeah, and if it becomes a matter of stay with the army or starve to death, that is going to be the best way to motivate soldiers to do things that they probably don't really want to do, like murder massive numbers of their countrymen.
Well, remember, we can go back and look at Venezuela within the last decade and see what happened there during hyperinflation, where soldiers, they were still working as soldiers because going and working anywhere else was going to guarantee you're going to be missing meals. So working for the government meant that you were eating, and working for anywhere else, like, good luck.
Yeah. And the other thing is, armies, when they don't get paid, they still have their guns.
They turn.
And so they do what's called living off the land, which is a euphemism for living off the population and stealing and looting,
and they were doing
in
that in
order
Venezuela.
to survive.
They were taking people's animals and slaughtering them and eating them because even the military didn't have as much as they wanted to eat.
Not to mention the zoo animals.
That happened too.
No.
The reason he says that this U.S. zombie keeps going is because the end of the U.S. is the end of Western prosperity and an admission that the current system failed as a model for the world. It doesn't change the reality. The collapse is inevitable and coming. And then he says, what are our leaders planning? And I hate it when people refer to politicians as leaders. These people, they couldn't lead somebody out of a paper bag.
They are rulers, not leaders.
Well, they lead certain people. They led the people who did this. They made the plans for the evil bastards that actually follow them. It's just we're not the kind of people who are likely to follow them. So to us, they are definitely not leaders.
They shouldn't be your leader either.
Absolutely not.
Without a controlled demolition, the world will collapse for all, including the elites. The world has changed so much, and nothing seems to make sense anymore. The blatant corruption is out in the open, the obvious propaganda, media, the erosion of our rights. What is the end game? He says, and that's the end of his thread.
He's right, but I don't think I don't think that the collapse is going to prove that, Western civilization or democracy or Republican concepts, I don't think it's proof that those ideas failed. It will be proof that statism failed. And that statism in the long run, imperialism, however you wish to characterize it, it doesn't work.
Well, that's
freedom.
the system. That's the system that failed.
Sure.
It will be written up as the failure of capitalism, but of course,
and
what we have
freedom
isn't capitalism, and it never was.
That's true.
And it's been getting farther and farther away from capitalism ever since the fascist takeover during FDR's reign.
Oh, and there was one I skipped. Sorry, the second to last post. You may have heard about the Great Reset, because I said he did mention that here, or the New World Order. It is a controlled demolition of the global markets, economies, is it a controlled demolition of the global markets, economies, and the world as we know it? A shift into a new dystopian future where elites are the masters of the slaves without the cosmetics of democracy. Seems like it.
That's exactly what it is.
And as he points out, and as we saw with the recent World Economic Forum video feed that they had, they're coming right out and telling it to you. They're not hiding this anymore, even though the Bilderberg Group's still behind closed doors. World Economic Forum is just blasting it out there.
But the question is, do we have the guns to fight back?
There's more coming up here in moments. Hour 2 is next. It is Free Talk Live. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
If you look at what's just happened in Parliament, whatever statistics you want to chuck around, I've got many more MPs supporting me now than I did in 2019. I'm happy with that. We're going to bash on. We have a huge agenda and we're going to get it done.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson welcoming the outcome of a confidence vote in his leadership. He will remain in office after securing the support of 211 of his fellow Conservative Party lawmakers, but 148 of them, more than 40% of the parliamentary party, voted against him. Andrew Marr of Britain's LBC Radio is one of the country's most prominent political commentators.
That's a heck of a lot of MPs voting against their own Prime Minister. Looking at the history of these votes going back, I'm afraid the Prime Minister is still living through a wilderness of pain, and there's more to come ahead.
Kremlin-backed state media in Russia have confirmed the death of one of the country's top generals during intense fighting in the eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. Major General Roman Kutuzov was leading troops from the breakaway Donetsk People's Republic that's recognized as independent by Moscow but not by Kyiv. US President Joe Biden is trying to salvage his Summit of the Americas after Mexico's president pulled out of the high-profile week-long conference on the US West Coast. Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he's skipping the event in retaliation over the US decision not to invite Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua. FSN's US correspondent Nick Harper with more.
The summit in Los Angeles is meant to be a chance for the US to show its diplomatic clout and its leadership role in Latin America. Now, President Biden is facing an embarrassing rebuke from Mexico's leader, the head of America's most important trading partner in the region. Mexico's foreign minister will attend instead, but other countries have also threatened to boycott after the US said it was not extending invitations to authoritarian-led Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela. Biden will attend the summit in person on Wednesday. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A spate of shootings over the weekend in several US cities has strengthened calls for stricter gun control, just as lawmakers insist they're more confident than ever that a deal can be reached. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Benji Hire reports.
Democrats in Congress have seized on a growing sense of national outrage and are pushing for a bipartisan response with Republicans to toughen federal gun laws for the first time in a generation. Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, the lead negotiator, says they're closer than ever before to a compromise, but any agreement looks certain to fall well short of President Biden's proposal to ban assault weapons. And the stakes are high. Murphy admits the consequences of failure for our entire democracy are more significant than ever. Benji Hire, Washington.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. We are now more than 100 days into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and over the weekend, Russian missiles rained down anew on the capital Kyiv. It's been several weeks since the Kremlin turned its military attention on the Russian capital, and for the most part, the last few days have been dominated by intensified attacks on eastern Ukraine, the Donbass region that President Putin hopes to annex. But what is the Russian leader's endgame? Andrei Kortunov is a veteran observer of Vladimir Putin and heads the Russian International Affairs Council, a Kremlin-backed think tank.
My take is that the difficulty of the situation, well, there are many difficulties, of course, of the situation, but the most important thing is that President Putin cannot accept defeat. He cannot lose this war. So there should be some kind of a settlement that would allow him to say that I accomplished the mission, I did what I was supposed to do. Now I can end this whole operation and we will have some kind of political settlement. It will not be easy because, of course, Zelensky cannot afford defeat either.
Also over the weekend, President Macron of France said the West should avoid humiliating Russia as it continues to respond to the invasion, a move that deeply angered President Zelensky. President Biden says he wants to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position ahead of any negotiations to end the conflict. The main news again, Boris Johnson will continue to serve as UK Prime Minister after winning a confidence vote of his fellow Conservative Party lawmakers. Kremlin-backed state media in Russia have confirmed the death of one of the country's top generals during intense fighting in the eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. And Joe Biden is trying to salvage his Summit of the Americas after Mexico's president pulled out of the week-long conference. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
It's now been 7 days since a group of hikers went missing in Maine's Acadia National Park, but rescue crews there are still holding out hope of finding them alive. Autistic reporter Michael Falk is on the scene there. Michael.
Hello, Brooke.
My socks got wet. That cameraman gave me new socks. I am fine.
That's good, Michael, but what's the situation there?
The names of the hikers are Casey Allman, Brian Emery, Ashley Thorson. The hikers were last seen 174 hours ago. Since then, 3 very big storms have hit here. There's a 1.24% chance that all of the hikers are alive. Why are you looking for the hikers?
Well, we're still hopeful that we might be able to find them. There's been a break in the weather, so we're hoping that...
Over the past 7 days, the average high temperature has been 21 degrees Fahrenheit. Over the past 7 days, the average low temperature has been 6 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right. So we did another sweep of the park from the air, but we didn't see anything.
Without shelter, the human body can withstand temperatures this cold for a maximum of 3 hours. Is there shelter in the forest for the hikers?
Not that we know of.
They are frozen.
Well, we like
Shh. This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live. We're kicking off the second hour of the program. We're talking about the so-called Great Reset, or the economic disaster that is being forced upon the people of the planet through endless money printing and lockdowns and other forced business closures and things like that. If you want to join us, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. Coming up, I think the president or CEO of the J.P. Morgan Bank is actually coming out and admitting that an economic hurricane is on the way. Arya has that story.
He is the CEO of J.P. Morgan. You are correct.
That's what I thought. So with you tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Arya.
We're going to go back to your phone calls, though. Actually, to your calls. I don't think we had a call in the first hour. You can bring up anything you want here on Free Talk Live. So we'll start out by talking with Renee, calling us from Louisiana. Renee, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Talking about right now?
Sorry, go ahead. I had you muted there for a second. Say again.
May I talk about the topic you brought up, the Great Reset?
You don't have to ask for permission to talk about a thing here. You can call in and talk about anything you want, Renee. So you go right ahead.
Okay. Well, my opinion is, if by any chance, especially in our country, there's anybody with, like if ever we get the Republicans back in office, there's anybody that on purpose, for Marxist reasons, tweaked or played with the economy, they should have I propose a new law, economic hate crimes against humanity, for messing up the economy because it causes people hardship. It causes some people maybe to die, loss of property and money to survive. And if people are actually doing that because they learned that in college and they want a Marxist revolt, and we could find that out, that should be a law. People should be thrown in jail for that.
Now, the problem with creating new laws is it's laws that already got us to this point. I think we've got enough laws. And secondly, even if you were to create that law, why would the government enforce it upon themselves?
Well, yeah, I guess you're right, but there's the government's not unified, kind of like the Great Reset's not unified.
What do you mean they're not unified?
See, I see them as unified. I've believed for a long time that the Republicans and the Democrats are controlled by the same people. The Republicans talk a better game in some ways, but when anything counts, they get all bipartisan on us. And
the Democrats also talk a good game in some ways as well.
Yeah, that's
They always
true.
talk a good game, both Republicans and Democrats, when they're not the ones in power.
They each talk a good game for a different audience, and that's an important thing. I think that's one of the reasons that they're pushing, for example, racial hatred in both directions. Is what terrifies the government is a united population, because a united population can destroy them. But if they can keep the population fighting against itself, then the government, by being more organized, can win.
Well, one last comment.
Go ahead.
I think the Great Reset may work in some areas, but it will splinter because you have different powers. You have the Chinese, you have the Soviets, you have radical and moderate Islam fighting, and you have greedy mafioso types here and there. I think the Great Reset will work to a degree in different, like 1984 in four places, but they'll still fight each other. There'll never be a perfect one world Great Reset.
I tend to agree.
Blow up.
As I understand it, the Great Reset is mostly a Western thing, and it doesn't factor in the Chinese or Russian governments. They're not part of the Great Reset.
Yeah,
I don't know that that's necessarily true. I mean, you have Trudeau, who's the poster child for the World Economic Forum, talking about his admiration for the Chinese dictatorship.
Sure.
You have Klaus.
Schwab.
What's his name? Yep. Klaus Schwab, talking about how great China is.
Yeah, they all view China's tyranny as a model on how to behave, but none of them are trying to get China to participate in the Great Reset. They're like, hey, join us. We're going to screw over our population and take control.
See,
China and Russia aren't invited to the party.
I don't know that's the case. I don't even know that the war in the Ukraine, for example, is a real thing. I would not be surprised if it was simply a planned thing to manipulate the public, and that Putin was in on the game. Because who would jump at this faster than the Chinese and the Russian governments, who have absolutely no concern for the welfare of their people? They don't even pretend, like the American government pretends to be concerned for the welfare of people in general, and the American people.
I think the point is
in particular,
they don't want to give up, and a lot of people in power don't want to give up their power to some other group.
One parting shot, please.
Yeah, sure.
My thing, I'm in an all state. My wonder is how come, say, Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, even Trudeau's Canada and Mexico, and maybe even Alaska, don't just make their own OPEC or join OPEC and fight the forces of big greed, because all is our money. I work on crew boats.
The thing is, they don't even need an organization like OPEC to fight OPEC, because OPEC does what it does by restricting drilling. And so anything you drill, any oil you pull out of the ground is fighting OPEC, even if that forms no part of your intention.
What's that, Renee?
I said, if the oil states of North America could even join OPEC to fight big green energy, woke green energy, which is detrimental to the planet.
Thank you, Renee, for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. Aren't there severe restrictions in the United States by the federal government, gang, on who can pull oil in the US?
There have to be, to keep prices as high as they are. Biden is cooperating with OPEC every time he restricts oil drilling. Whether or not that's his intention, it's what he's doing. Because
I think what the caller didn't understand was that the existence of OPEC and their ability to control the supply of oil is why green energy or whatever is so popular in the first place. It's the only thing that is allowed to compete with OPEC to any degree whatsoever.
Well, green energy would be popular with or without OPEC, because oil bad, green good.
Right, but that's part of the mythology that's put down by the media, and that was what the caller was getting at, is that we need to take down the green energy industry, and we need to pair up with OPEC in order to do it.
It's in the media. These kids today are so indoctrinated with the whole green thing that they're suffering from what they call eco-anxiety. There's now a diagnosis for young people who are freaking out because they've been told as they've been growing up that the world's going to literally end in the beginning of their lifetime.
And they're wondering why there are more school shootings.
Sure.
Oh, well, yeah. And a lot of these guys, the guy who shot up the store in Buffalo, the environment was a big part of his. He was an eco-fascist.
That's right.
Which, fascism is something that people turn to when they're scared. And so what we can be pretty sure of is that he's terrified of some kind of ecological collapse. How that matches with his racism, I don't know. But he's, and there's a lot of people who are absolutely terrified of what the environment's going to do. Personally, I think they're going to solve the environmental problem by killing off a large percentage of the human race, and then
there are people who believe in that. What was it? Was Bill Gates one of them? It wouldn't surprise me. I think there's somebody.
Yeah, well, he did make the comment that through judicious use of vaccines, we could cut the population of the world by 15%. Nobody ever followed up to find out exactly how vaccines would work in that
More
context.
coming up. It's Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you're helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can join the program here and bring up whatever is on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live, by the way, is brought to you by listeners like Damian Williams, who is a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program at amps.freetalklive.com. Damian's silver level, which means that he is contributing at least $5 a month, and we certainly appreciate that support. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way to help Free Talk Live get the ideas of liberty onto more great radio stations around the country and expose new people to the ideas of freedom. So head over to amps.freetalklive.com. As we continue here tonight, you've got Ian.
Nobody.
And Arya.
We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts. And then coming up, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, the mega bank, is going to weigh in on what he's calling an economic hurricane coming in soon. But Olivia is in Arizona first up. Go ahead, Olivia.
Hey, I had a couple of questions for Arya, but first I wanted to talk about the subject of Google Doodle a couple of days ago. His name was Kiyoshi
Google Doodle?
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
So if you go to the Google page, usually it just has Google in like green, blue, yellow, and red letters.
Yeah, and they change it up to promote usually an individual or something.
They do it fairly often, as I understand it.
Almost daily, I think.
But I mean, who even goes to Google.com anymore?
Well, I guess me. But
you don't just type what you want into like your address bar and have it automatically use whatever search engine you prefer?
I do that too, but it will show up the little doodle. There's like an icon near the top of the page too.
That's
it'll
search
show
results.
the doodle of the day.
Yeah, if Google is your search page, you'll see that as your result.
So what was this person you were saying? Google what now?
His name was Kiyoshi Kuromiya. I hope I said that right. It's Japanese. He was a gay rights activist, but he was also an anti-war activist. And I clicked on it and I read his wiki page, and I just wanted to share some of his activism because I got the biggest kick out of it. At the University of Pennsylvania, he was the instigator of the largest anti-war demonstration in Penn's history, with 2,000 people in attendance. He had formed a group called the Americong, and he said that an innocent dog would be burned alive with napalm in front of the library. And so 2,000 people showed up protesting, and he handed out leaflets that said, "Congratulations, you saved the lives of an innocent dog. How about the hundreds of thousands of Vietnamese that have been burned alive?"
Nice.
Yeah.
That's pretty slick, because that's smart too, because remember back when the war in Iraq and Afghanistan was going, and there was news at one point that some soldiers had thrown puppies off of a cliff? Do you remember that story? People were outraged about this.
It was a true story, if I recall correctly, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they did get in trouble for it. But, of course, those same people are killing human beings left and right, and that's just a statistic. But when it happens to a puppy, then all of a sudden people start to care. So
humans killing humans, that's terrible. That's a tragedy, right? But killing other species, it does feel a little bit more evil, because humans are the ones committing evil, so it's fair, at least for other humans, to be the victims of that evil. But the puppies aren't out there. No puppy is out there committing an act of evil.
Generally,
well, I don't know. If you were a sheep and being eaten by wolves, you probably wouldn't like it very much.
But it's not evil. I mean, dogs don't have a moral compass.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely true.
But it was smart because the dude used the fact that people care more about what happens to an animal than
I don't know if I'd want to play that game. It's clever.
Their fellow man. I mean, he never was going to burn a dog alive.
I know.
Yeah, they do, and they also care more about what's close to them than what's far away from them.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is just a natural defense mechanism that, you can't wrap your mind around tragedies that happen on the other side of the world. But if somebody's doing something across town, that feels like something you can have an effect on. Like you can go and, if necessary, just beat that person up until they stop doing what they're doing.
What else, Olivia, did you want to share about this guy?
I had a couple of questions for Arya too, but I really loved this also. He also went to the Pentagon with Abby Hoffman, and there was a large demonstration. It was kind of a performance art protest where they held hands and attempted to levitate the Pentagon. But when
I
that didn't
remember
work,
that.
when that didn't work, they took the police barricades and made bonfires all around the length of the Pentagon. And Kiyoshi held up a poster that had F word, the draft, but of course he spelled the actual word. And he was arrested and put in jail for an indecent poster.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, but I did have a question for Arya.
Sure.
And nobody, I'd love to hear what you had to say about that, where they tried to levitate the Pentagon too. But
it's
Arya,
a heavy building. It's probably not going to work.
Would have been cool though if they could just levitate it and make it go away,
Right
like
into
shoot
the
it towards,
ocean, man.
or shoot the moon or something. Anywhere
Well,
else.
maybe instead of trying to get the building high, they should have gotten the people inside it high, and maybe they would have been able to see the error in their ways.
Put some acid in the water supply or something like that, maybe.
Ecstasy, I think, would have had better results.
Yeah, well, ecstasy definitely works well with post-traumatic stress disorder, and I think a lot of the people, doing evil are doing evil not because they're bad, but because they're sick.
They think it's good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They see it as defense.
All right, Olivia, you had a question?
I did for Arya. Arya, would you prefer if people saw you as a trans woman, or would you prefer to just be seen as a woman? And I also had a comment about I have some relatives who think it's extremely clever to sit there and say, no, your DNA, it's built in your DNA that you are this gender and blah, blah, blah. And it makes me think of my auntie, my mom's sister, who was born with a congenital heart defect. She was born with a hole in her heart that had to be repaired in the 1960s with heart surgery. And it's like, so my auntie, by her DNA, is a person with a hole in her heart. But no one goes around saying, well, you have a hole in your heart. You have a hole in your heart. Because she doesn't have a hole in her heart. They fixed it. So I'm just like, this DNA argument is just stupid to me. But would you prefer to be seen as a trans woman or as just a regular woman? Like,
I mean, it's a fair question, but I don't think my preference on it really makes a difference. For better or worse, I am a trans woman. I will never just be a woman. Anyone who calls me a woman, they're always going to have some asterisk attached to that, right? And trans is usually the asterisk. But I'm not simply a woman. I'm never going to be a woman.
The tools in the trunk are a little different.
Yeah. So I am a trans woman. Whether would I prefer to just be a woman instead of being a trans woman? Absolutely, it would have made my life a lot easier. But that's not the way that things worked out. For I am a trans woman, and whether I would prefer that to not be the case is irrelevant. It is what I am.
And I'll bring that back to your DNA statement, which is words and language work by a process of spontaneous order. Okay, they're very much like economies in that way, and as a result of that, the meanings of words consistently shift. So within the context, for example, of a biologist, it makes perfect sense for a biologist to define sex as simply based on chromosomes and physical reality. Other people may define sex or gender based on personality, but different words have different meanings in different contexts.
There's more coming up here. Thanks, Olivia. It's Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
If you look at what's just happened in Parliament, whatever statistics you want to chuck around, I've got many more MPs supporting me now than I did in 2019. I'm happy with that. We're going to bash on. We have a huge agenda, and we're going to get it done.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson welcoming the outcome of a confidence vote in his leadership. He will remain in office after securing the support of 211 of his fellow Conservative Party lawmakers, but 148 of them, more than 40% of the parliamentary party, voted against him. Andrew Marr of Britain's LBC Radio is one of the country's most prominent political commentators.
That's a heck of a lot of MPs voting against their own Prime Minister. Looking at the history of these votes going back, I'm afraid the Prime Minister is still living through a wilderness of pain, and there's more to come ahead.
Kremlin-backed state media in Russia have confirmed the death of one of the country's top generals during intense fighting in the eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. Major General Roman Kutuzov was leading troops from the breakaway Donetsk People's Republic that's recognized as independent by Moscow but not by Kyiv. US President Joe Biden is trying to salvage his Summit of the Americas after Mexico's president pulled out of the high-profile week-long conference on the US West Coast. Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he's skipping the event in retaliation over the US decision not to invite Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua. FSN's US correspondent Nick Harper with more.
The summit in Los Angeles is meant to be a chance for the US to show its diplomatic clout and its leadership role in Latin America. Now, President Biden is facing an embarrassing rebuke from Mexico's leader, the head of America's most important trading partner in the region. Mexico's foreign minister will attend instead, but other countries have also threatened to boycott after the US said it was not extending invitations to authoritarian-led Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela. Biden will attend the summit in person on Wednesday. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A spate of shootings over the weekend in several US cities has strengthened calls for stricter gun control, just as lawmakers insist they're more confident than ever that a deal can be reached. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Benji Hire reports.
Democrats in Congress have seized on a growing sense of national outrage and are pushing for a bipartisan response with Republicans to toughen federal gun laws for the first time in a generation. Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, the lead negotiator, says they're closer than ever before to a compromise, but any agreement looks certain to fall well short of President Biden's proposal to ban assault weapons. And the stakes are high. Murphy admits the consequences of failure for our entire democracy are more significant than ever. Benji Hire, Washington.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, some people are freaking out over a drag show that happened in Dallas targeting children, apparently. We'll get into that on the way here. With you tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Aria.
Also, we still have to talk about Jamie Dimon, the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, the big bank, what he has to say about an upcoming economic hurricane. Those are, I believe, he called the term hurricane. We'll get into that.
He used the word hurricane, yeah.
We'll get into that, but also coming up, our co-host Mark Edge is going to be speaking at the Free Cities Foundation annual conference called Liberty in Our Lifetime. It's happening in Prague from October 21st through the 23rd.
Oh, he jacked Liberty in Our Lifetime. Oh, dear.
Well, I don't know if he's the one organizing
Somebody
this conference.
jacked it.
Well, we didn't own it. And you know what? If they can get to Liberty in Our Lifetime sooner than we can here in New Hampshire, then
more power to them.
That's awesome.
More power to them. I want people to be free.
That's a Libertarian Party thing, right?
No, it's a Free State Project.
It was originally a Free State Project slogan. I never heard it before the Free State Project.
Because it's I think it's the opening line of the Libertarian Party platform.
Boy, I don't know about
There's something about achieving liberty in our lifetime.
You'll have to check on that one. I don't know the last time I looked at the Libertarian Party platform in any meaningful sense. So again, this is happening in Prague, October 21st through the 23rd. The purpose is to showcase autonomous cities and intentional communities that are springing up around the world, offering opportunities for settlers to live freer lives. The conference theme is Parallel Structures for Progress, and they'll explore physical developments and parallel structures emerging in education and finance that offer alternatives for people looking for better ways to learn, educate their children, and invest in the future. Free Talk Live listeners get a 20% discount on tickets. Use code FTL20 when checking out over at Eventbrite. I presume that is available on their website. Yes, lifetimeliberty.com. And you can also follow their conference on Twitter at the handle @LibertyIOL, standing for Liberty in Our Lifetime. You can get your tickets soon and take advantage of the early bird discount. I had to figure that one out. I was like, why?
That makes sense. Because when I was doing it, I was like, Liberty IOL. What is it? What does
I thought
it mean?
I thought it was mistyped. I thought it was supposed to be Liberty LOL or something.
I did too.
No.
That's why I changed the font on the I
thanks
just
for
to
that.
make it clear. I was like, there's no way. Very weird.
LifetimeLiberty.com, code FTL20. You can save 20% on your tickets. And again, it's in Prague, October 21st through the 23rd. So let's get into Jamie Dimon here. What is it that he has to say, Ari, you wanted to share tonight?
Well, this
guy, by the way, hates Bitcoin.
He does.
That's where we've talked about him in the past. And then his bank started selling Bitcoin to its top investors after he talked about it for years.
Well, yeah, he didn't want the plebs to buy it up, right?
I guess, yeah.
Are they selling altcoins or just Bitcoin?
I don't know. Probably just Bitcoin.
JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon warned of a looming economic hurricane caused by an increasingly hawkish Federal Reserve, rising inflationary pressures, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Now, they're going to blame as much as they can on Ukraine.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, he's blaming a hawkish Federal Reserve, which probably refers, when people refer to the Federal Reserve as hawkish, they're talking about generally raising interest rates,
which they did do recently.
Which means reducing the flow of money, because they talk about lowering interest rates like it's something they can just do, but they can't just lower interest rates by decree, because if nobody is ready to lend money at that rate, then that's not the rate. So in order to actually lower interest rates and make it effective, the Fed has to stand ready to lend money at that rate. And so when you raise interest rates, you're saying the federal government is less willing, or the Federal Reserve is less willing to print and lend money. And so that's what they mean when they say hawkish. So he's blaming the cure for the disease.
Dimon, who said at the beginning of May that there were storm clouds forming on the economic horizon, ratcheted up his warning on Wednesday, citing fresh challenges facing the Fed as it seeks to tame the hottest inflation in a generation.
That's hot.
Yeah, the inflation that they caused.
Right. I love how they pretend. Did you guys see the comments from that Janet Yellen character recently? How she was acting like, well, however could we have predicted this? I just can't understand. It took us by surprise.
I did not see that.
I think it was Michael Malice who wrote that the most frustrating thing about being a libertarian was predicting the future and then sitting and watching TV as government expert after government expert goes on TV and says, nobody could have predicted this.
Yeah.
And they never ask the people who did predict it.
Like Ron Paul of more than a decade ago, for instance.
Warning about an economic crisis right before the 2007 recession.
Yeah.
And, then recently he was on Free Talk
as
Live
early as
talking
2003, he was warning about the housing crash.
Sure, and recently he was on Free Talk Live talking about, the coming economic disaster, and he's going to be right.
Absolutely.
But not enough people are listening.
Nobody can predict these things except the crazy people, because when you correctly predict the future, they say you're crazy.
I said there were storm clouds, but I'm going to change it. It's a hurricane, he said during a conference hosted by Alliance Bernstein Holdings. Right now, it's kind of sunny. Things are doing fine. Everyone thinks the Fed can handle it. That hurricane is right out there down the road, coming our way. We don't know if it's a minor one or Superstorm Sandy. You better brace yourself.
Didn't Biden also say something recently about how everything is okay? People are just they've got the best savings they've ever had.
We need like a Morgan Freeman like copycat to just narrate right now, but everyone was not okay.
No.
Yes.
And everyone knows it.
Yeah. The people who aren't steeped in modern monetary theory know it.
I mean, isn't it up to like 2/3 of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck or something like that?
I think you reported that recently, yeah.
There are two main issues that Diamond said are worrying him. The Federal Reserve moving to unwind its $8.9 trillion balance sheet, deploying a lesser-known tool known as quantitative tightening that will further tighten credit for U.S. households.
I've heard about this.
It's the opposite of quantitative easing.
Easing, yeah. Yeah, now I don't know a whole lot about it, but I heard that they're going to take a bunch of their assets and somehow liquidate them. Is that what's happening?
Well, it's the opposite of quantitative easing. Quantitative easing is when you take dollars and you buy up assets. So quantitative tightening would be when you effectively sell assets and then burn the money.
So they're gonna try to take money out of supply.
Yeah, they're gonna try to get it. They're gonna try to stretch it out into one more cycle of inflation, and I think they're gonna fail. But
well, if they're taking money out of supply, wouldn't that undo some of the damage?
That would be deflation.
It will undo some of it. The problem is at the same time, if you look at the decisions that businesses make when they decide whether or not to expand, whether or not to hire people, that's heavily based on the interest rate, because basically if the profit you're going to earn from a chunk of money is greater than the interest you're going to pay on that money, then it's worth borrowing that money and expanding. So the problem is, and the part of the problem that he sees is that if you raise interest rates, money comes out of the stock market. And people become less willing to invest. So at that point, you're looking at recession.
So you're saying that if the Fed is selling off all these assets, that could push stock prices down even further?
Yes, it could push stock prices down. It could,
because presumably that's what the assets we're talking about here, right? Didn't the Fed buy a bunch of stocks back in 2020 to push the market up?
Yeah, they bought stocks, they bought bonds, they bought all kinds. I think they bought foreclosed houses. Or
could this crash the real estate market?
Huh?
Do you think this could crash the real estate market if they've got a bunch of homes?
It could. I mean, which wouldn't be bad from a consumer point of view, because lower housing costs are good for
people. More coming
people.
up here. You can share your thoughts. Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. You can join us at 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And bring up whatever you want. We're talking right now about the so-called economic hurricane that is being predicted by Jamie Dimon, the CEO.
Here I am, rocking like a hurricane.
Going to rock your economics like a hurricane, according to him. Now, you made some interesting points here, nobody, that this guy, what he considers to be an economic hurricane isn't necessarily what the average person is looking at.
No, he's interested in his investors who are rich people who hold a lot of stocks.
Yeah.
So just like when you force a lot of money into the stock market, you get the roaring 20s. When you take that, or when you print a lot of money, a lot of it goes into the stock market. And you get the roaring 20s. When you take that money out, you get the Great Depression. And of course, you get a depression. The thing about the Great Depression is monetary policy caused the depression, but it was FDR who made it great. And he made it great by being so unpredictable and so irrational on government policy toward prediction that nobody in their right mind would invest in anything, because you never knew when the government was just going to come and regulate you out of existence or steal everything you had.
So there's a story here over at MarketWatch, because I wanted to know more about this quantitative tightening, which apparently is starting this week.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was last
the opposite
Wednesday.
of quantitative easing.
Yeah, well, I didn't know a whole lot about that either. I thought quantitative easing was just them printing money, but apparently it was them buying up stocks.
Well, it is them printing money, but in order to get the money into circulation, it has to go to somebody. And so the question is, who does it go to? And the answer is it goes to somebody who can yield up some other asset in exchange for it.
Which they then hold on to, and now they're going to take those assets and attempt to sell them.
Right.
And according to Market Watch, they say starting Wednesday, but this was written last week on Tuesday. So I believe this started last week. The Fed will begin reducing its holdings of Treasury securities. Those are government bonds.
Yeah.
Agency debt and agency mortgage-backed securities. Now,
whatever the hell any of that is,
I have no idea.
Mortgage-backed securities are the one of the proximate causes of the housing crash. They're basically companies.
Are you talking about home mortgages?
Yeah, companies that sell mortgages will divide. You'll basically buy shares in a whole parcel of mortgages, and so you're not. And your profit.
If one of them fails, then it's not the end of the world. If one mortgage gets collected on or whatever.
Exactly. It
like
kind
Lewis
of
Black
averages.
It's like a lasagna where only one of the layers is human feces. The rest are quite good.
Yeah.
Until a bunch of them go bad.
Well, I mean, even one layer being,
Yeah, that's not healthy.
So it says here they're going to try to sell these things off to a tune of $47.5 billion per month for the first 3 months. After this, the total amount to be reduced goes up to $95 billion per month, with policymakers prepared to adjust their approach as the economy and financial markets evolve. So basically, we're looking at the end of summer. They're going to move to $95 billion a month of selling off these assets.
So they're trying to pull USD out of circulation.
That's what they say.
Yeah, but they're doing it on a very small scale. 95 billion, call it 100 billion.
Right.
Okay, that's 1/10 of a trillion. So over the course of a year, they would pull less than $1 trillion out of the economy, and just the very first COVID bill put $3 trillion into the economy.
Right.
So what they're doing is too little, too late.
I don't know. I think it's going to be worse. I remember when COVID-19 began, I was like, look, cash is going to be really, really easy to get for a while, and then it's going to be almost impossible to get. And I think this is going to be one of the contributing factors that leads us into that place where it's impossible to find cash, because that's what happened during the Great Depression, right? No one just had any money. And we're going to see that again. We're just, people don't have any money. They're going to look around and they're going to ask
cash. It's going to be online zeros and ones.
It's the same difference. Though.
Yeah,
they're just not
still
going to have
considered cash, though. It's still included, I believe, in M1. We should look that up.
And they're going to look around and they're like, man, I don't have any money in my bank account, and I can't find a job because these employers don't have any money in their bank accounts or whatever because the Fed pulled it out of circulation, and countless other factors that the Feds are just contributing to. But I think this is one of the next steps in the economic collapse.
Yeah, I think it's some of the inevitable thrashing that they're going to do. I think of it like a drowning man. He thrashes around, he tries everything, but he's drowning. And
see, that's where I diverge from you, though. I don't think they're drowning. I think it's intentional. I think they know what the effects of this are going to be, and I think that's what they want in order to execute the Great Reset.
I think you're probably right in that. I think really they're creating the illusion of trying to do something because, Biden's tried to blame inflation on Putin. He's tried to blame it on, corporations suddenly becoming greedy, which they never were before. And nobody's buying any of it. So,
well, all they have to do is say, we're going to wear pink today in order to curb inflation, and the masses of Americans are so stupid that at least half the people out there. No, I said if. If they were to do this, a large number of Americans were like, look, they did everything they could to fight inflation. They wore pink, man. What more do you want from them? People are stupid.
Next.
So this quantitative tightening, they can just say, look, we're doing this to help curb inflation or to make the economy better or whatever. But it doesn't matter what the actual results of that are going to be, because we know it's not going to help the economy at all. And the masses of people are still going to be like, well, they tried.
The reduction
they should have done more quantitative tightening.
Well, it will probably take the edge off it, and if they did what was done in 1982, for example. Now, we had a very similar situation, but less so, in the 70s when we were suffering from what they called stagflation, which meant they had high, the thing you heard on the news every day was double-digit inflation and double-digit unemployment. And in when Ronald Reagan was first elected, interestingly enough, the head of the Federal Reserve was still the last one appointed by Carter. I can't remember his name, but he did tighten monetary policy, which caused what they called the Reagan recession. But then because of the stronger dollar that resulted from that, they then had a pretty good economic expansion during the Reagan term. But again, this was Carter's doing, oddly enough.
And of course, the totals we were talking about back then were chump change compared to what's going on today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Now, there's a little bit more here about what the supposed plan is. The reduction will occur as maturing securities roll off the Fed's portfolio and proceeds are no longer reinvested. As of September, the roll-offs will be occurring at, quote, a substantially faster and more aggressive, unquote, pace than the process which started in 2017, according to Wells Fargo. By the Institute's calculations, the Fed's balance sheet could shrink by almost $1.5 trillion by the end of 2033, taking it down to around $7.5 trillion. So it's
over 11 years?
No. In the first year, the end of
2020. I thought you said 2030.
2023.
Okay.
Taking it down. So it was $9 trillion. It's $9 trillion apparently about right now, and it's going to go down, they say, to $7.5 trillion. And if QT continues as expected, quote, this $1.5 trillion reduction in the balance sheet could be equivalent to another 75 to 100 basis points of tightening, unquote, at a time when the Fed funds rate is expected to be around 3.25 to 3.5, and the current target range of that rate is between 0.75 and 1%. So it sounds like they're planning on raising those rates again and again.
Yeah, it sounds that way. And a basis point is either 1%. Of 1%, or it's 1/1000th of 1%. I can't remember which. I think it's 1% of 1%.
And isn't that the rate at which they are loaning to the banks, basically?
What did they call it?
The Fed funds rate.
The Fed funds rate, I believe, yes, is the rate at which they lend to banks.
All right, there's more coming up here at 603-283-6160, and that's one of the reasons why Jamie Dimon is upset, because those numbers are going up.
Yes, he wants the money in the stock market.
There's more on the way here. Hour 3 is next. It's Free Talk Live. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
If you look at what's just happened in Parliament, whatever statistics you want to chuck around, I've got many more MPs supporting me now than I did in 2019. I'm happy with that. We're going to bash on. We have a huge agenda, and we're going to get it done.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson welcoming the outcome of a confidence vote in his leadership. He will remain in office after securing the support of 211 of his fellow Conservative Party lawmakers, but 148 of them, more than 40% of the parliamentary party, voted against him. Andrew Marr of Britain's LBC Radio is one of the country's most prominent political commentators.
That's a heck of a lot of MPs. Voting against their own Prime Minister. Looking at the history of these votes going back, I'm afraid the Prime Minister is still living through a wilderness of pain, and there's more to come ahead.
Kremlin-backed state media in Russia have confirmed the death of one of the country's top generals during intense fighting in the eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. Major General Roman Kutuzov was leading troops from the breakaway Donetsk People's Republic that's recognized as independent by Moscow but not by Kiev. US President Joe Biden is trying to salvage his Summit of the Americas after Mexico's president pulled out of the high-profile week-long conference on the US West Coast. Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he's skipping the event in retaliation over the US decision not to invite Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua. FSN's US correspondent Nick Harper with more.
The summit in Los Angeles is meant to be a chance for the US to show its diplomatic clout and its leadership role in Latin America. Now, President Biden is facing an embarrassing rebuke from Mexico's leader, the head of America's most important trading partner in the region. Mexico's foreign minister will attend instead, but other countries have also threatened to boycott after the US said it was not extending invitations to authoritarian-led Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela. Biden will attend the summit in person on Wednesday. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A spate of shootings over the weekend in several US cities has strengthened calls for stricter gun control, just as lawmakers insist they're more confident than ever that a deal can be reached. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Benji Hire reports.
Democrats in Congress have seized on a growing sense of national outrage and are pushing for a bipartisan response with Republicans to toughen federal gun laws for the first time in a generation. Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, the lead negotiator, says they're closer than ever before to a compromise, but any agreement looks certain to fall well short of President Biden's proposal to ban assault weapons. And the stakes are high. Murphy admits the consequences of failure for our entire democracy are more significant than ever. Benji Hire, Washington.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. We are now more than 100 days into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and over the weekend, Russian missiles rained down anew on the capital Kyiv. It's been several weeks since the Kremlin turned its military attention on the Russian capital, and for the most part, the last few days have been dominated by intensified attacks on eastern Ukraine, the Donbass region that President Putin hopes to annex. But what is the Russian leader's endgame? Andrei Kortunov is a veteran observer of Vladimir Putin and heads the Russian International Affairs Council, a Kremlin-backed think tank.
My take is that the difficulty of the situation, well, there are many difficulties, of course, of the situation, but the most important thing is that President Putin cannot accept defeat. He cannot lose this war. So there should be some kind of a settlement that would allow him to say that I accomplished the mission, I did what I was supposed to do. Now I can end this whole operation and we will have some kind of political settlement. It will not be easy because, of course, Zelensky cannot afford defeat either.
Also over the weekend, President Macron of France said the West should avoid humiliating Russia as it continues to respond to the invasion, a move that deeply angered President Zelensky. President Biden says he wants to put Ukraine in the strongest possible position ahead of any negotiations to end the conflict. The main news again, Boris Johnson will continue to serve as UK Prime Minister after winning a confidence vote of his fellow Conservative Party lawmakers. Kremlin-backed state media in Russia have confirmed the death of one of the country's top generals during intense fighting in the eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. And Joe Biden is trying to salvage his Summit of the Americas after Mexico's president pulled out of the week-long conference. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. Researchers at the University of Washington report that they have successfully trained 7-year-old chimpanzee Makoko to do all of the tasks necessary to conduct a 3-year study on primates. According to the scientists, Makoko has efficiently learned to turn in thorough analyses of behavior in chimpanzees, fill out all of the necessary paperwork to ensure compliance with the Animal Welfare Act, and even apply for supplemental grant funding from the National Institutes of Health. Sources within your office reported today that the guy on the 3rd floor with 2 computer screens on his desk is not f***ing around. Co-workers said that the man, currently working with at least 3 programs open on each screen, was absolutely tearing it up, with sources adding that watching the man run a group video chat while dragging 2 separate Google documents to his 2nd screen was like something out of f***ing Minority Report or something.
Jesus, he's just dragging things from one screen to the other like it's nothing. He's going balls to the wall over there. Christ, man, I don't think he's blinked in 3 minutes.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up whatever you want. We're kicking off the 3rd hour of the program. The phones are open, and you can join us here. Bring up whatever is on your mind. 603-283-6160 if you want to comment on the economy and what you see coming down the road. Doesn't look too good. There's a lot of people saying that. With you tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Aria.
But if you believe the White House and the official government line, then everything's rosy. This is the quote
If
that
you believe the White House, you're a moron.
You're a sucker, no doubt. And you always have been, whether we're talking about the Trump White House or the Biden White House or the Obama or Bush or whoever. Here's the quote I was referring to earlier just offhand. I didn't have it in front of me. This is from a speech Biden gave, 2 or 3 days ago, looks like. June 3rd. Quote, "It isn't only about jobs. Since I took office, families are carrying less debt. Their average savings are up. A recent survey from the Federal Reserve..."
What world does he live in where that's true?
Let me give the second sentence and then I'll be done because I don't want to read the rest of it. But a recent survey from the Federal Reserve, that's a trustworthy institution, found that more Americans feel financially comfortable than at any time since the survey began in 2013.
Everything he just said is a lie.
Yes. And let's switch over to Gallup News, where they do what is called the Economic Confidence Index.
This is where they do a poll that's actually, quote, scientific, and it's not just some Fed secretary
some propaganda
writing down what she wants the government to say.
DC, they report the Economic Confidence Index is now measured -45, which is down from -39 in each of the previous 2 months. It's the lowest reading in Gallup's trend during the coronavirus pandemic, and likely the lowest confidence has been since the tail end of the Great Recession in early 2009. And then they show the graph of this particular confidence number. And basically, it goes from -100 to +100. And it measures the relative confidence of the American people as asked by Gallup in an ongoing survey on a year-by-year, at least year-by-year, maybe they do it more than once a year basis. And it was in the positives at around 2015. It dipped negative maybe in 2016 it looked like. They do it looks like a couple times a year. And then 2017 it went up even more positive to a high of 41, positive 41 at the very beginning of 2020, right before coronavirus happened. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it had not been that high. So the score of 41, the last time it was that high was back in like the year 2000.
I can imagine it plummeted for the second.
Plummeted.
2020 reading they have.
Yep, it plummeted, came back up towards zero for most of 2021, and it has been steadily going downward since, now at negative 45. So if the American people are feeling less positive than they have felt in the last 12 or 13 years, because the only other time, again, was the last recession, then that in no way can jibe with what Joe Biden is saying here, claiming that Americans, more of them, feel financially comfortable than at any time since 2013.
No, they're less comfortable.
That's right. By definition, financially, they are worse off. Their buying power is worse than it's been.
And there's less to buy.
That's true, too.
Especially if you need baby formula.
Yep.
Well, there's none of that to buy.
Well, there's some. There's
sure.
There's less than needed.
Well, none of us are going down that particular aisle of the grocery store. I suspect we don't have intimate knowledge with
ain't nobody got time for that
with that subject. But if you want to weigh in on it, you're welcome to do so. Let's talk to Sarah. She's in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Oh yes, I just want to remember. I'm always into this ionizers and ionizing technology with the oxygen molecule, and I just want to explain what the ionized oxygen really does in our body.
Please do, Sarah.
I'm sure you're
I cannot
an expert.
wait to hear what you think it does.
Well, I mean, this was actually from there's a machine that it was part of the advertisement that they were selling. This machine that they have these machine that at.
Let me guess. This is your network marketing company that sells the machine?
No. It's about it's. They were on the commercial, and then I don't hear them anymore. But this is part of their. I've only heard
Either
the
they
commercial on
sold
the radio.
so many machines and they don't have to advertise anymore because they're tremendously successful, or they've gone out of business.
What's an ion, Sarah?
What
Sarah,
is
did you
it?
hear the
It's like
question?
Okay, ion.
No. There was a question
okay.
for you.
Go ahead.
What's an
You asked
ion?
about what is, okay, the ion is the one that I'm talking about is happens in nature. The oxygen molecule picks up an extra electron, so it becomes like ionized, becomes a
Negatively charged. Yes, that part's correct.
Okay. Yeah,
Hey,
so then,
I'm impressed.
But,
I am too.
But the thing about it is that this actually happens in nature. So after a good thunderstorm,
Yes, it does.
if you're up in the forest or if you're next to a waterfall, they have all these natural ionizers that happen naturally. Like, I think there has to be
You can smell it,
ionizing
right?
going
Isn't
on.
that smell after a fresh rain or whatever? Isn't that sort of the ionized air, supposedly, or something like that?
Right. And then the reason I'm trying to explain that the reason why we get all this perked up energy and it feels refreshing is because our red blood cell actually is able to pick up more oxygen molecule because of the ionization. So that was the explanation what I heard on the commercial, which I want
to make sure I understand this correctly. If you negatively charge your red blood cells, they're able to carry more oxygen. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's the opposite. If you negatively charge the oxygen, your hemoglobin's able to absorb more of it. I don't know if that's true or not.
And what is the purported benefit of this? You're generally more rejuvenated. You're feeling peppier. I mean, what's the benefit of having more oxygen in your red blood cells?
Well, that's the point. That's the whole point. That at the same time, this ionization cleanses the air in your surrounding area. And then also you feel like you're in the mountains. You feel refreshed. You're getting more oxygen. But why are you guys
Isn't it harder to
laughing?
breathe in the mountains?
Just eat a Klondike bar.
I don't know if
Then
that's
you'll
good
feel
for
like
you.
you're standing on top of a mountain, right? Isn't that the commercial? You bite into it, and suddenly you're standing on top of the Swedish Alps.
So I got to wonder, Sarah, why didn't you buy the machine?
Because she's poor.
Well, the thing about it is that, that's it. I was like,
She's got welfare money. I mean, she can afford
ask
stuff
me.
like this. You're not eating steaks every night, are you?
No, just once in a while. But what's amazing is that the salt with the lamp inside the middle does the same thing. That's the amazing about it.
The salt lamps?
Yeah, the salt lamp. That's
Run that by me
exactly
one more
what I
time.
thought of it. Okay,
I've heard those are BS, salt lamps.
I've never heard of a salt lamp. Sarah, what is a salt lamp?
Okay, let me tell you. Okay. Have you ever seen a pink salt that lights up? Have you ever seen them at any of the beauty salons or spas or anywhere that you went?
The pink Himalayan salt I have seen.
Yeah, right. And
I used to date a hippie chick.
Okay, so then the thing is that I am a believer. I thought this was a BS. I
So
see
this
them
is
in
just
a
a
catalog.
chunk. This is just a chunk of salt that someone put a light in. What?
Right, but the thing
Why are
is
people
that
doing
here's
this? What are hippies doing these days, man?
This is old, man.
They're always doing crazy stuff.
Okay, I would explain to your answer. I mean, I'll answer you if you keep your mouth shut. Okay.
Sarah, we're just trying to figure out what you're talking about.
Well, she's talking about the salt lamp. I just showed you a photo of them.
So we had to find out what a salt lamp is, because just a few minutes ago you were talking about ionizing the oxygen, and then you go straight into salt lamp.
She's saying she thinks the salt lamp does the same thing as the machine, right, Sarah?
Not that I think. I know that it does, because I own salt lamps, and I know the difference in the air quality. That's it.
And now, is it a candle or is it just a light that's in there?
Well, it's either or. You could use any type of heat. I've seen the ones with the candles in it, or you could have like any kind of a light bulb source. So I thought this was a bunch of malarkey.
Thank you for the call tonight, Sarah. Appreciate it. The number is 603-283-6160. Is this thing for real? The salt lamp claims.
Well, she correctly defined ion.
She did. You were surprised.
Which completely blew my mind.
What are the salt lamp claims?
We can talk about it coming up here in moments, and you can share your thoughts as well. Maybe you've got experience with them. It's Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here and bring up what you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Coming up, there's apparently an event that happened over the weekend that conservatives are freaking out about in Texas, of all places. It was a drag show for kids, apparently. We'll get into that coming up here. But you had asked the question, Arya, what is a salt lamp?
Yeah, because it's the first I've ever heard about it. But you showed me a picture, and it looks like just a large chunk of salt.
It is.
A lantern or something in it.
Some sort of heat source, some kind of light. And Sarah had called in from New Mexico, pitching this as we didn't let her really get into her health claims that she probably would have made. She likely would have claimed
cures cancer.
That these probably would have made that claim or something like that. And there are a lot of products on the market that make a lot of claims. A lot of people swear by them, but there's usually not a lot of evidence. You know, they've done studies on salt lamps. This is not a new technology, quote unquote. It's not a new product. These things have been around for quite a long time. But I do have a story here from realsimple.com by Elizabeth Yuko. Do salt lamps actually do anything, or are they just pretty? Here's what the research says. So skipping down a little bit, they're a fixture of spa decor and Instagram content. Salt lamps are basically large hollowed-out chunks of pink rock salt that contain a light bulb or other type of heating element. Quote-unquote authentic salt lamps are made from rock salt mined from the Himalayan mountains, usually in Pakistan, although it's often hard to confirm if the product's true or are truly from that place when purchasing it.
What does it have to be from the Himalayas?
It's just the marketing.
Okay.
That's where Tibet is. It's a spiritual place.
Right. When a salt lamp
don't tell the Chinese.
When it's turned off, it looks like a large, decorative, salmon-colored crystal sitting on a shelf. When it's turned on, it produces a soft, and some might even say soothing, pinkish glow. Most of the health claims made about salt lamps stem from the idea they supposedly release negative ions into the air, which is the claim that Sarah was making. Scientists have been looking into the sources and the potential benefits of air ions since the beginning of the 20th century and have found they can be generated naturally via waterfall, rain showers, or thunderstorms. However, studies on the potential mental and physical health benefits of negative ions that have been found in nature have largely come up empty, with no consistent or reliable scientific evidence of potential therapeutic effects. Now, that said,
hanging out a waterfall is going to make someone feel a little bit better.
Right, and it does smell nice after a fresh rainfall, right? I've smelt that. It's an enjoyable scent.
Yeah.
And if that makes you feel good, then that might make you get over a sickness sooner, right? Like if you're feeling positive, you're feeling good. What does this mean in terms of salt lamps, however? In short, the main basis of the health claims is that the lamp produces negative ions.
Well, we can test that scientifically.
And they have. So far, there has been no meaningful scientific evidence, says this story, that negative ions do anything to improve a person's mental or physical health. On top of that, there's also no evidence that salt lamps even produce and release these negative ions in the first place.
That's what I would expect to be the case, because I don't know of what chemical process or electrical process a piece of salt would go about ionizing anything.
The air.
Yeah.
Right. Well, there's also a fixed number of electrons, so for every negative ion you produce, you also produce a positive ion.
Yeah, and it certainly couldn't do it forever, presumably, right?
Yeah, I mean, you could.
I mean, they're talking about the
I'm not
salt
sure.
emitting something, and if it's emitting anything, it's eventually
run
going
out.
to emit itself to death.
Yeah. But
But
again,
this
no evidence for
No,
this.
that would take place over tens of thousands of years, if it was even happening. I mean, and it obviously is happening because it's got a half-life like everything does.
I mean, you can ionize things over time. That's how batteries work, and as long as you keep charging your battery, it, in theory, will keep ionizing. Although eventually, I guess they wear out.
They
too.
run out.
Yeah.
That means there's no reason to take any of the purported health benefits of salt lamps, including claims they clean the air, boost your mood, or improve sleep quality at all seriously. Unless, of course, they do boost your mood. I mean, we talked about the placebo effect the other night here on Free Talk Live, and it is a very, very powerful effect. We had Olivia calling in talking about that she's now on SSRIs, and she believes that they're helping her. And I said, well, there's been studies that show that placebo can cure depression, and there have been studies on placebo and anxiety as well, and they help people with anxiety. In fact, it's hard to manufacture a product that does better than the placebo effect.
Well, we didn't manufacture it,
That
but
stuff makes me nervous.
Psilocybin cubensis, it does do a better job of treating depression and anxiety and these things than
Sure.
SSRIs.
Yeah, I didn't even think to bring up psilocybin in that case.
That's what I would recommend.
But
I'm not a doctor or a medically trained professional, but the people out there struggling with depression, anxiety, and stuff like that, like I used to struggle with, do what I did, maybe, and do some shrooms.
Works for me.
Did you do it all alone, too? Just do it by yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. I wouldn't recommend the first time or do it alone. You probably
Well,
want to have
I had experience with other psychedelics at that
Okay,
point. And
okay.
it wasn't like I was going to, I had never sat down like, I'm going to do shrooms.
You didn't
and
take a
I'm gonna
heroic dose either, right? Your first time out?
Not my first time doing it by myself, no.
Yeah, okay.
But I wasn't like, I'm going to sit here and listen to music and go on this intense internal spiritual journey to master myself or anything like that. I was, I'm going to have some shrooms and have a good time. 3 hours later, I was laying in the grass crying about my
Yeah.
oneness with the universe, but that wasn't the intention.
That's interesting.
And, that's one of the things people talk about, bad trips.
Mhm.
And I've never had a bad trip. I've had uncomfortable trips.
Yeah, where you had to deal with something, right?
Yeah. But generally, having dealt with that thing, I'm going to feel better in the long run because, it's like popping an emotional zit.
Mm-hmm.
Once you pop it, it heals.
And I tend to think all shroom usage is like that. A person, maybe they're just doing shrooms to have a good time, and that's fine. But if you're carrying baggage you haven't dealt with one of these days,
The
those
shrooms will have
are going
another
to find
plan.
it.
Yeah, that's for sure.
And you're just going to have to deal with it, whether it's just a party drug to you or not.
Mhm.
It's going to happen.
I like that advice. But again, if it's your first time doing psychedelics, have a trip sitter, somebody
Yeah.
who's had some experience to be there with you.
You don't want to be talking to plants.
Well, you can talk to a plant as long as somebody's there to keep an eye on you.
I didn't talk to a plant, but I thought I was being harassed by a plant once.
Do you remember the song, Didn't Mean to Give You Mushrooms, Girl? Didn't mean to bring you to my world.
Oh, yeah,
Now
My
you're
Fault
sitting
by
in the
Eminem.
corner crying, and now it's my fault, my fault.
Who sang that song?
That's Eminem.
Oh, really?
That was on his debut album, yeah.
I didn't know who sang it either.
I did because I recently went through and listened to some of that old Eminem stuff. It was so much more. Dude, I know people say they could never get away with that today, but he could never have gotten away with that stuff
Wow.
today.
Amazing.
Like, well, check it out during the break, man. That song it's bad.
Do you know what it's called? Do you know the name?
It's
of
called
it?
My Fault.
My Fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The number here is 603-283-6160. The phones are open here. So, look, if you believe the salt lamp's going to help you, then it may very well because it'll act as a placebo effect, probably, and you will ultimately be the one helping you. It's you that's helping you when you believe that some other thing is helping you. It's just you're putting that onus onto the thing when it's really happening inside of you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think mushrooms do... they can be an excellent catalyst, and basically it's just sometimes you have to look at a problem from a different angle. And that's one of the reasons that crazy people sometimes seem to have great wisdom, is they just look at things from a different angle, and sometimes that angle shows them something that other people don't see.
We continue with your calls and thoughts. They're welcome here. The number 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Karl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
If you look at what's just happened in Parliament, whatever statistics you want to chuck around, I've got many more MPs supporting me now than I did in 2019. I'm happy with that. We're going to bash on. We have a huge agenda and we're going to get it done.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson welcoming the outcome of a confidence vote in his leadership. He will remain in office after securing the support of 211 of his fellow Conservative Party lawmakers, but 148 of them, more than 40% of the parliamentary party, voted against him. Andrew Marr of Britain's LBC Radio is one of the country's most prominent political commentators.
That's a heck of a lot of MPs voting against their own Prime Minister. Looking at the history of these votes going back, I'm afraid the Prime Minister is still living through a wilderness of pain, and there's more to come ahead.
Kremlin-backed state media in Russia have confirmed the death of one of the country's top generals during intense fighting in the eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. Major General Roman Kutuzov was leading troops from the breakaway Donetsk People's Republic that's recognized as independent by Moscow but not by Kyiv. US President Joe Biden is trying to salvage his Summit of the Americas after Mexico's president pulled out of the high-profile week-long conference on the US West Coast. Andrés Manuel López Obrador says he's skipping the event in retaliation over the US decision not to invite Cuba, Venezuela and Nicaragua. FSN's US correspondent Nick Harper with more.
The summit in Los Angeles is meant to be a chance for the US to show its diplomatic clout and its leadership role in Latin America. Now, President Biden is facing an embarrassing rebuke from Mexico's leader, the head of America's most important trading partner in the region. Mexico's foreign minister will attend instead, but other countries have also threatened to boycott after the US said it was not extending invitations to authoritarian-led Cuba, Nicaragua and Venezuela. Biden will attend the summit in person on Wednesday. I'm Nick Harper in Washington.
A spate of shootings over the weekend in several US cities has strengthened calls for stricter gun control, just as lawmakers insist they're more confident than ever that a deal can be reached. From FSN's Washington Bureau, Benji Hire reports.
Democrats in Congress have seized on a growing sense of national outrage and are pushing for a bipartisan response with Republicans to toughen federal gun laws for the first time in a generation. Connecticut Senator Chris Murphy, the lead negotiator, says they're closer than ever before to a compromise, but any agreement looks certain to fall well short of President Biden's proposal to ban assault weapons. And the stakes are high. Murphy admits the consequences of failure for our entire democracy are more significant than ever. Benji Hire, Washington.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up anything here. The number is 603-283-6160. Coming up, the Texas gay bar that hosted a drag show for kids, apparently. And some people are really upset about this.
I'll bet Sarah's upset. She hates drag racing.
That's true. Here tonight, it's Ian.
Nobody.
And Aria.
July 13th through 16th, our co-host Mark Edge is going to be out at the Vegas Freedom Fest. I guess it took a couple years off. It was in South Dakota, I think, last year, but they're back to Vegas this year.
Vegas Freedom Fest was in South Dakota?
Yeah, they moved it because
they couldn't find a venue or something.
Yeah, Vegas was probably going all mass crazy still last year. And so
are they all liberal?
I don't know, but they were definitely cracking down during COVID in Vegas, and so I guess they're back. It's July 13th through the 16th. Mark's going to be there for the world's largest gathering of free minds. Freedom Fest is an intense and rewarding 4-day conference like no other, with big debates, world-class speakers, a film festival, social events, the trade show for liberty, and more. And this year, Mark will be speaking about locating liberty with hundreds of other premier speakers and top-level experts in a wide range of topics. People like Ben Stein, John Cleese, Steve Forbes, Glenn Beck, Rand Paul, Spike Cohen, Justin Amash, and many others will be there. And the last 2 years have been full of government overreach, lockdowns, and mass hysteria. So the theme for this year's conference is Turning the Tide. There's so much to discuss at Freedom Fest, from Bitcoin to gold, economics, politics, the Constitution, philosophy, science, technology, vaccines, education, and more. You can use our code to get $50 off the regular rate. Go to freedomfest.com and use code FTL50. That's freedomfest.com. Code is FTL50. The event is July 13th through the 16th.
I'm sorry. The Constitution has either authorized such government as we have had, or it has been powerless to prevent it, and in either case, it's unfit to exist.
That is why more libertarians should go to Freedom Fest, because there's a lot of conservative types that go to that particular event. It's kind of a mix. The crowd is, I've only been to one of them. It was in 2019. The mix there is libertarians and conservatives, and that means that, maybe some conservatives will hear some ideas that they haven't heard before, and maybe that'll make them think about something.
No.
I like Anarcho Vegas and Crypto Vegas. I wonder if they're happening this year. We'll find out in the next few weeks, I imagine.
Didn't the founders move to Texas or something like that of that event, or maybe not?
I'm not sure.
I don't know either.
They're also doing the Jackalope Festival now, I think.
That's Arizona.
That is. That Float Fest is what I was thinking about. They're also doing that.
They have in Texas. That already happened, I believe, this year.
Right. But they may just be doing that in lieu of, not doing
Burning Man, I don't
Vegas.
know. Burning Man has been canceled the last 2 years.
Yeah, it was digital or something.
Wow.
Yeah, they did a really lame-ass...
I remember that. We covered that.
It was
that
so
was
stupid.
Lame.
Yeah, it was so dumb. And they did the same thing last year while you were still in jail.
Oh, wow.
Same digital crap.
E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo, or whatever it stands for, the largest video game show in the world, is also canceled this year.
Again?
Yeah, they're not even doing a digital one this year.
See, a
why
video
bother?
game convention I can see doing digitally. That makes sense.
It didn't work out when they tried it in the past, though.
Yeah, it sounds really lame.
Yeah, because it basically just, Microsoft's on their YouTube channel, Nintendo's on theirs.
That's not a convention.
No.
Yeah.
All right, so...
Well, and of
but
course,
I mean, COVID's
if you're
gone.
just playing video games and talking with people in the chat channels, and that's what you do every other day.
Well, no, the E3 is the idea is you're going to go and see new technology, right? Like you're going to try the new virtual reality.
That's when they release the upcoming console, the new games, or whatever that everyone's going to want.
You'll see the hot new tech, like they've got the whatever that comes after Blu-ray, or there's some sort of new thing that's on display. There's some.
I think after Blu-ray, it shifts toward Red Ray as it speeds up.
It's probably just going to not have physical media anymore, most likely. But that's the point I was trying to make is that they show off the new tech there at those shows.
I was making a redshift joke. Fell flat at will.
Somebody got it.
It was moving too quickly.
Yeah, physics jokes. They're problematic.
It's a niche audience for sure.
Definitely.
So WFAA.com reporting out of Dallas, Texas, where an event happened this weekend that has conservatives all up in a tizzy.
Now, I don't know what happened here. But
I'm about to tell you. But go ahead.
I want to speculate that all the conservatives had to do was not let their kids go.
Yes, but they want to stop other people's kids from going.
Well, see, they can't do that.
Well, they tried.
Well, if they have enough guns, they can.
Well, and that's
they can't
the thing.
morally do that. They have no right to do that.
I agree with you. And that's the thing here is for the last 2 years, the conservatives have sounded like the bastions of freedom, right? Oh, don't make me wear a mask, my body, my choice, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And we've been out at protests and we've, marched with them on these different freedom-related issues that have come up over the last 2 years. And all the while, Those of us who know what conservatives are all about know the truth is they don't care about liberty for other people. They only care about their own freedom. They only care about themselves. When it comes to the liberty of other people to, say, raise their families how they want to, then conservatives start to get real crazy. In fact, I saw one of them online this weekend. One of these conservative influencers said something about how people who take their kids to drag shows should go to prison.
Good Lord.
Yeah, that's
excessive.
That's how insane these people are.
You give me an idea, though. I should take this approach about trans stuff with conservatives more often. Like, okay, you don't want to wear a mask. I get it. I respect that. I don't want to wear men's clothes.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing, right?
Well, they'd probably say...
Except mine's not even being alleged to kill people.
They'd probably say, well, you're an adult. You can make your own decisions, but your children have to wear whatever their gender requires.
Of course, and you do see it on both sides. I saw a video of a guy. He was actually a black guy, and he was in a school irate because the teacher had forced his son to wear a dress.
That's not good either.
So yeah, it's you see anti-freedom
I'd have to see this
on
video,
both sides.
but I suspect a lot of that is not true. I suspect a lot of it's people who want to believe that is true.
Well, there was a libertarian who's the new treasurer under the Mises Caucus Libertarian Party takeover, which has, by the way, been an incredible success in the last week. They've gotten back to actual principled messaging at the National Libertarian Party, so I'm really pleasantly surprised with how that's turned out. But Todd Hagopian posted on his account over the weekend, and he really stirred people up by pointing out that, there's people that, you talk about both sides, there's people that believe that taking your kids to church is abusive. And
that's true. I would argue they have a better case for that than they do about letting your kids transition.
Well, we're not even talking about letting kids transition. The issue over the weekend was just simply taking kids to a drag show. Okay. So that's a much easier issue, right? Like, that's just having a little bit of fun with people who want to cross-dress and act silly, right? But now, to be fair to the conservatives, it was at a gay club where the imagery at the club was fairly mature, right? So at this...
See, that's where I diverge from this as well, because I've been to LGBT clubs, and I have never seen one where I was like, yeah, they should totally let kids in here. It'd be fine. This is a kid-approved environment. No,
it's pretty adult.
Yeah.
And it says here there's like a big neon sign on the wall, like behind the drag strip or whatever, where the people are walking up and down, doing the show. It says in neon letters, "It's not gonna lick itself."
Well, that's accurate. The science is settled on that. People have been trying to get it to lick itself for a long time.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
And it won't do it.
Right. So now, look, I get that some people say, all right, well, kids shouldn't be in this club. They shouldn't be seeing these things. But you know what? It's not your family. And therefore, it is none of your damn business. Why can't you just leave it alone?
Yeah, there's a lot of argument on how best to raise kids vis-a-vis sex, and I think that should be a very private decision. This is a very different issue than the Florida bill
I would
regarding
want
the
parents
public schools.
to be clear about what gay bars are like before allowing one of their kids to go to this thing, but if they want to allow it, why not?
I mean, they could have turned around and walked out.
They're going with you.
Yeah, they're there. There's more coming up here. This is Free Talk Live. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. forkfest.party.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Phone records, financial and location data, Prism, Tempora, X-Keyscore, Boundless Informant. Hey y'all, Scott Horton here for offnow.org. Now here's the deal. Due to the Snowden revelations, we have a great opportunity for a short period of time to get some real rollback of the national surveillance state. Now they're already trying to tire us by introducing fake reforms in the Congress. And the courts, they betrayed their sworn oaths to the Constitution and Bill of Rights again and again, and can in no way be trusted to stop the abuses for us. We've got to do it ourselves. How? We nullify it at the state level. It's still not easy, but the Off Now project of the 10th Amendment Center has gotten off to a great start. I mean it. There's real reason to be optimistic here. They've gotten their model legislation introduced all over the place, in state after state. I've lost count, more than a dozen. You're always wondering, yeah, but what can we do? Here's something important, something that can work if we do the work. Get started cutting off the NSA support in your state. Go to offnow.org.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, the number if you want to join in here in the remaining moments, which are right now, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You join us online anytime you want. We do have our own social media server. Go to social.freetalklive.com. Where I've actually been having a discussion or debate or whatever with some what sound like pretty ultra-right conservative types from other Mastodon servers on this very particular issue today.
You've been gabbing with them?
I don't know if they came from Gab, but yeah, there are other servers I never heard of before, because there's literally thousands of Mastodon servers out there, and they're all federated together.
And now you can report people to us, even if they're on other servers, and that's not annoying at all. So please keep doing it.
Well, it's only happened a few times, but we can't do anything about it. So
I imagine most of the people signing up are like, yeah.
Actually, we could. I think you could. I
guess we could disconnect from the server.
Block an account,
but they can block the account. That's the thing. The people reporting could just block the account.
Yeah. And
they want us to block it from our server.
When people report something, it's not, I don't want to see this because
I don't want
that's
other
easily
people.
solved, but I don't want other people to see this, which comes right back to the topic we're at now.
Yep, and that's what we're discussing here tonight, which is these conservatives who claim that they are supporting liberty. Like, okay, yeah, you've been on the right side. You've been on the pro-liberty side of mask wearing. You've been on the pro-liberty side of vaccines. But when it comes to allowing others to be free, to do things that you wouldn't do with your family, conservatives cannot abide. They cannot just live and let live.
Some conservatives, there are exceptions, I think.
Well, if there's exceptions, then they're going to the libertarian camp, because it's social conservatism is what really defines these people, besides warmongering.
That's what conservative means. It means they're trying to conserve the status quo, and that is, cis heteronormatism or normativity, whatever the word is that leftists tend to use. That is what conservatives want to preserve.
At least it's what's in their mind, the status quo, because the fact is, gay people have been around since the beginning of time. It's not like that's some sort of new thing.
They want to maintain the Leave It to Beaver ever.
Army was famous for buggering each other. Talk about gays in the military. They took over the world.
That's the problem with conservatives, though, is they do want to go back to the Leave It to Beaver era, when they don't realize
which only existed on television.
Yeah, that was never a real thing. It was a TV show.
Yeah.
I thought Pleasantville was a brilliant expose of that whole idea that, you look back at the 50s and you look back at an image of an era in your mind, but that era never existed. There were gay bars in the 50s. There were gay people in the 50s. Turing was being hounded to suicide by his government for being gay in the 50s. And Turing, if you don't know, was the guy who it could be argued single-handedly won World War II by breaking the Enigma machine. He was a computer scientist. He was also gay as the Ace of Spades.
Is that the Turing test, Turing?
Yes, same Turing. And he was hounded he was chemically castrated by his government because he was gay.
It goes all the way back to like Oscar Wilde. Gay people have always existed.
Yeah. Well, it makes you wonder, would these conservatives support chemical castration today?
There are certainly those who would, where...
No, because that comes with being trans, and that bothers them.
Huh?
That comes with being trans, and that bothers them. So no, they wouldn't support it.
They might support it if it was against your will, but if you wanted it, they would probably oppose it.
That's a better way of putting it.
So here's a clip from outside of this bar. It's called Mr. Mister, spelled MR.MISSTER. In Dallas. It happened on Saturday, and a bunch of the conservative, quote-unquote, influencer types came out. They wanted to use this as an opportunity to go viral and, have their videos passed around.
Nothing better to do on a Saturday night, guys. That's sad.
During the daytime. But 11 to 2 o'clock. So here's a clip
Always remember, being bisexual doubles your chances of having a date on Saturday night.
So this guy has shown up on some libertarian podcasts. This person who from whose video I will be playing this clip, his name is Alex Stein. And he showed up most recently on this show when we played a clip from him appearing at a city council meeting in whatever city in Texas, Plano or something like that, and giving them this ridiculous pro-COVID rap, or not pro-COVID, but like pro-masking rap. I don't know if you guys saw this clip.
I
got
remember
passed
that,
around, and it was pretty funny. Like, he did a ridiculous little rap that he was in this character, right? He wasn't himself. He's playing some COVID obsessed freak that loves masks and things like that. And he made fun of those people very effectively in front of the city council. And I thought, this is pretty creative, and I followed his profile. Well, come to today, where he shows up outside of, or this weekend, where he shows up outside of this event.
You should be ashamed of yourself. Your little kid at a bloody gay bar.
Let me see your porn search history.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
You watch
You
gay
should be
porn.
ashamed of yourself.
You watch gay
This is a woman pointing back at him saying that he watches gay porn.
Can we please get him to say you should be ashamed of yourself just one more time?
Yeah,
I just need to hear it
one
more time.
Sure. there's 30 more seconds.
Look at this.
You're ashamed of yourself.
Leave her alone.
You guys are letting little kids.
Leave her alone.
You guys should be ashamed of yourselves. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Again.
That's at least 8 times that he said it, man. Like,
Security is walking up to him.
It makes me think of Buffy the Vampire Slayer when Buffy says to Cordelia, "Have you no shame?" And Cordelia says, "Oh, please." Like shame is something to be proud of.
Yeah, and so security from the event is coming towards him at this point. He's out in the parking lot, by the way, where this is going down. Earlier, I did see another clip from him this weekend where he tries to get into the event, and of course, they're not going to let him in the front door. And then he protests and says, "Oh, you guys aren't inclusive."
Did they know who he was?
Yes, yeah, he's a local activist who has made a scene at various different city council meetings in a very entertaining way during COVID. So yeah, he's shown up at other gay.
He's out there
events.
yelling at people right now. Why would they let him? Even if they knew nothing about him, he's in their parking lot yelling at their customers. You're not going to let him in.
No. I would assume that he would have the sense if he's trying to get in that he would, hide his nonsense under a bushel barrel.
This may have come after the part where he tried to get in. I don't know what the order of the videos is. So security
comes up.
Okay, I'm just
saying, you guys are indoctrinating children. You should be ashamed of yourself, little man. You don't deserve to have to go to a gay bar.
Now he's yelling at the kid there. You should be ashamed of yourselves.
Yeah, there's only one person here who should be ashamed of themselves, dude, and that's you, the person making this video.
You don't deserve to have to go to a gay bar.
You don't
deserve to have to go to a gay bar. That's like a triple negative somehow. Maybe because if you go quadruple negative, then it's positive again.
Yeah.
It's very perplexing messaging to be accusing gay people of indoctrinating children when you're presumably a Christian conservative. Indoctrinating, they literally call it indoctrination, at least in Southern Baptist churches.
Yeah,
I don't know if they do everywhere else,
but they teach is their doctrine. That's
right.
Certainly,
and you got to put it in those kids.
They openly talk about indoctrinating using that exact word.
Phrasing, aren't we doing phrasing anymore?
But it's like the conservatives here. They just cannot allow. They don't understand how to just let people live how they want to.
It's super easy. Just take a relax and go, haha, yeah, that's got nothing to do with me, does it? Yeah. I guess I'm going to go mind my own business.
Yeah. What I say is if somebody in your church is doing it and you want to excommunicate them from your church,
that's your business.
Because it violates the morals of your church, that's fine.
Yeah.
But you can't expect everybody to join your church.
Yeah.
And you certainly can't force unwilling others to join your church and share your spiritual beliefs.
Well, in Islam, it says there is no compulsion in religion. I think in the second sutra or whatever terminology they do, and that's true in Christianity.
It does say that.
Well, that's true of Christianity as well.
A lot of compulsion in a lot of Islamic states. So,
the state
yes, there
is
are plenty of
from
people who don't actually abide their teachings in their religious books.
What were you trying to say, though?
That is true in Christian mythology, the Christian doctrine as well. That they're not supposed to compel people to follow their beliefs. And if you don't profess to be a Christian, if you don't claim to be a Christian, you're not required to follow Christian teachings and Christian law.
Yeah, and there's different varieties of Christian. My parents went to a church that was Christian, but it was a very laid-back form of Christianity. They didn't do the fire and the brimstone. They certainly didn't hate on the gay people. But
did they have drag shows?
They didn't have drag shows. I mean, maybe the Technicolor Dreamcoat thing.
Out of time for tonight. Look, if you want to be free, you got to let other people be free, and that means they'll make decisions you wouldn't. We'll see you tomorrow. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt